July 21st, 2026 study session. Agendas for study sessions, including concept reviews, can be found by visiting Broomfield's website at broomfield.org. There are 9 council members in attendance, with I think 1 on the way. Our agenda this evening includes 1 proclamation, 2 concept review items, and 1 study session item. The public may participate in public comment on the proclamation and concept reviews only, either in person or through our call-in service. Visit our broomfield.org/council meetings webpage for step-by-step instructions on how to call in for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 through 25 have 2 minutes, and if time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1 minute to speak. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets in the back of the council chambers from our AV team. Our first item this evening is a proclamation recognizing and honoring Project Children. Will the representatives here to accept the proclamation please make their way to the podium? And I will now summarize the proclamation. Project Children, founded in 1975 by Dennis and Patrick Mulcahy, has spent 50 years fostering peace and reconciliation by providing more than 23,000 children from Northern Ireland the opportunity to spend summers with host families across the United States. Through the dedication of volunteers and host families, the program helped build lasting friendships, broaden perspectives, and promote understanding across religious and cultural divides. The proclamation also recognizes Project Children's continuing legacy through educational and cultural exchange programs and commemorates its impact with the dedication of a memorial tree and bench in Broomfield, honoring the organization's founders, volunteers, and the thousands of lives transformed through its mission of peace. Therefore, as mayor, I do hereby declare and proclaim that we proudly honor Project Children for its lasting contributions to peace, reconciliation, cultural understanding, and humanitarian service, and dedicate a memorial tree and bench as enduring symbols of hope, friendship, and gratitude for all who helped build its legacy and transforming the lives and fostering peace across generations. Would our representatives like to introduce themselves and make any remarks?
Thank you. My name is Anthony Massey. I'm the coordinator for Project Children. Have been for 28 years. I wanted to thank Mayor Castriata and Mayor Pro Tem Jean Lim and other council members for this proclamation. I'd like to take a minute to introduce the supporters of our program, specifically Dan McCauley with Habitat for Humanity in Boulder, and the young gentleman, James McHenry and Aidan Morgan from Ireland that are contributing to the building of Habitat for Humanity homes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Dan McCauley. I'm the Executive Director and CEO for Flatirons Habitat for Humanity, serving Boulder and Broomfield, also a resident of Ward 3. For about 10 years, Habitat has partnered with Project Children, and every summer we've had a couple of lads, as we call them, come and spend time with us. This summer, we are, of course, spoiling them as they get to build in an air-conditioned factory as opposed to in 100-degree weather. Today, they were squaring up walls, and yesterday when I was in the factory, they were unloading pallets of material, making meaningful contributions to the affordable housing crisis that plagues our city. So thank you for this proclamation. Thank you for honoring this very important program.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Aidan. I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I'm here as an intern in Flatirons Habitat for Humanity through Project Children. The work we are doing with Project Children and with the Flatirons Habitat for Humanity to help the community here in the Colorado and specifically Boulder and Broomfield County areas is nothing short of extraordinary. The work we've been able to do so far and the people we've met have really broadened our horizons and has allowed us to come away, hopefully, in the next few weeks with a new sense of self-righteousness and fulfillment for playing our part in, as Dan was saying, being able to actually help the community rather than doing a meaningless act. And this proclamation has allowed for the rest of the community to become more knowledgeable of the work we're doing in the communities and the work that Dennis and his brother Patrick have been doing for the last 50 or so years. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here and for your service.
Hello, Council. Thanks for having me in Eden. I'm from Monaghan Town in the Republic of Ireland, and I'll just add on to what Eden has said previously. Firstly, I'd like to express my extreme gratitude to Anthony and Darlene Massey for hosting us this summer. We're halfway through our trip so far, and it's been nothing but exceptional. They've taken great care of us, and they've shown us around Colorado. We're just home from a trip on the weekend around Western Colorado. We had a great time so far, and also express my gratitude to Dan and everyone at Habitat for Humanity for welcoming us to Boulder, the Boulder County area. And the volunteers there are so nice. We get to meet new people every day from all walks of life, and it's a very welcoming organization, and it's great to give back to the local area as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're so glad you're here. Well, we do allow public comment. If anyone else would like to speak on this proclamation, there's an opportunity. I know you probably don't know much what to say, but we'll go to council. Do any of my colleagues have any remarks? Mayor Pro Tem Lim.
As you know, Broomfield is full of interesting people who do extraordinary things. And I was glad to have the opportunity when I was canvassing for Ward 3 to run into Anthony Massey at his door. It was wonderful to hear that he had shared Broomfield's beautiful setting with children from Ireland in need of healing due to sectarian violence. On Saturday, we're going to dedicate a bench and tree at Iris Circle and Miramonte Boulevard. And that bench will state, quote, "Project Children, Friendship, Peace, Hope." That's also appropriate for Broomfield in general, because one of Broomfield's strategic goals is to be a safe, supportive, and inclusive community. I appreciate Anthony Massey's efforts to procure the bench and tree, and he is bringing founder Dennis Mulcahy to Broomfield on Saturday. I also want to express my appreciation to staff for installing the bench and tree, and to Mayor Castriata for joining us on Saturday.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? We invite everyone to the event. Can you tell everybody where it is again? Yep.
It's, we're dedicating the bench and tree at 10 a.m. at Iris Circle and Miramonte Boulevard. And then afterwards at 11 a.m., there will be a documentary shown at Broomfield United Methodist Church. It's a documentary on Project Children, narrated by Liam Neeson. So thank you.
so much.
It's all free.
All right, well, would you guys be okay? Let's take a picture with everyone, our guests and my colleagues. Welcome, councilmembers. All right, thank you all for that. Next on the agenda is a concept review for a proposed income-aligned housing development at 16453 Peak Street. This is the review of a concept application only. It's not a formal application for this project, and no decisions by council on this matter will be made tonight. When a formal application is submitted, it will go through the full approval process, including a land use review commission hearing and council hearing. We'll follow the city's standard procedures for concept plan reviews. First, the staff will present a summary of the application. Following the staff summary, the applicant will make their presentation. We'll then take comments from the Land Use Review Commission and other interested advisory boards, if applicable, then followed by public comment. Then the applicant will have an opportunity for final comments and finally, questions and comments from council. Electronic copies of concept review plans are available at broomfieldvoice.com. Copies of comments provided for each plan at Broomfield Voice have been provided to council and can be found in the correspondence folder linked in tonight's agenda. Council members have a copy of the agenda memorandum for this proposal, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, community and council. We have a big heart night tonight for our two concept reviews, and kicking us off is Alex Bradshaw, our senior planner. Mr. Bradshaw, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Again, my name is Alex Bradshaw, senior planner, and the concept plan before you this evening is for an income-aligned housing project in North Park Filing 2, Replat H, specifically at 16453 Peak Street. Next slide, please. The applicant, Lincoln Avenue Communities, is proposing a 326-unit affordable apartment complex serving households at 60% of the area median income. The concept review will also include a required site development plan, and the aerial map here shows the proposed project site within the context of the surrounding area. And the site, as you can see, is situated just east of Sheridan Parkway and northeast of Preble Creek Parkway. Next slide, please. So here we have a more of an overall vicinity map of the baseline area. The project area is currently zoned PUD and is governed by the North Park Plan Unit Development. The PUD allows for a mix of uses that are organized around urban core centers, and some of those uses include employment generators, moderate to high density residential, and other supporting services and amenities. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of, I'll skip that one, directly southeast of the tributary park and approximately 500 feet west of the baseline regional parklands, including recently approved Raleigh Park. Next slide, please. The concept plan proposes, as I had mentioned, a 326-unit development featuring 2 5-story buildings with a density of approximately 74 units per acre. Building A, if we can go to the next slide briefly, Building A situated to the north, as we can see, the north is to the upper right-hand corner of this slide, would feature approximately 168 units intended to serve families, while Building B offers 158 age-restricted units for seniors. The site plan, as we can see here, has 2 residential buildings on the north and south sides of the lot, linked by a central parking garage, and each building includes a private landscape courtyard for residents. On the south, it'd be the southeast corner of the site, is an early childhood education building. Per the submitted materials in the concept review, indicates that the center will serve approximately 30 children. Next slide, please. So excuse me, could we go back one slide? I had one more comment on the parking itself. There's a limited number of surface parking. The parking garage will primarily serve the residential buildings, and the early childhood education center will primarily be surface parking. The total number of parking spaces provided by the garage itself are currently unknown and were not provided with the application. And then in regards to architecture, the submitted application provided some inspiration photos, a collage of different developments. The images primarily depicted a theme that had contrasting colors and a modern design. Next slide, please. Ultimately, there's no new public land dedication required for this project, as the public land dedications may be provided over time incrementally throughout and in accordance with the North Park Managed Growth and Development Agreement. The baseline community currently includes 122.89 acres of public open lands east of Promenade Street, including Big Green, Raleigh Park, as I had mentioned, and the Southlands open lands. So here we have some key issues. As we can see, staff has not identified any at this point with the conceptual submitted plans. Should any issues be identified as part of the formal development review, these will be explained as part of the public hearing memorandum for this project. Staff would also like to note a proposal to construct an affordable housing development could result in a negative impact on the city and county of Broomfield's long-range financial plan. This is not identified as a key issue for this project, as the site was previously zoned to allow a mix of uses, including the residential and affordable residential. An affordable housing covenant agreement was recorded for the property in 2020. Next slide, please. And lastly, here we have just a summary of neighborhood outreach, public notices. The sign was posted on the property per code and mailed notices to all property owners within 1,000 feet. The applicant has hosted their required neighborhood meeting, and that took place on July 8th, earlier this month. And as I mentioned again, the submittal for a formal development application to have a site development plan would be the next step in the phase of review. And the applicant is here this evening and has a presentation prepared as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. The applicant's presentation is next. Will the applicant's representative please identify themselves before beginning your presentation?
All right, good evening. My name is Elise Applegate Klink. I'm a planner at Norris Design. Giving this presentation on behalf of our design and development team. Tonight with me, we have Ben Taylor from Lincoln Avenue Communities, Matt Rosenberg, and Bobby Long from Kephart Architecture. So we'll have some people here available to answer any questions you have and receive any comments. Next slide, please. Oh, I already went over that. Our landscape team is in-house at Norris Design, and Harris Coker Smith is the civil engineer on the project. Harris Coker Smith has done a lot of other work in Baseline Parkside West, as has Norris Design. So we're all quite familiar with the setting. Next one, please. So we wanted to introduce you to Lincoln Avenue Communities. They define themselves as mission-driven, family-owned, and impact-focused. They own, develop, and invest in affordable housing throughout the community with 180 properties totaling over 31,000 units. They have a presence in 30 states with existing buildings and projects in the works here in Colorado, and they're actively growing their portfolio of affordable housing at a time when it's needed nationwide. So this is really their niche. They're not new to the affordable housing game. Next slide, please. We already went over the vicinity map, but I did want to reiterate that there was that 2020 development agreement. So this parcel is specifically deed restricted for income aligned or affordable housing. Next slide, please. Alex went over all of this pretty well, so I don't want to reiterate too many things. I did want to touch on the 60% area median income to give people a sense of what that looks like. This really serves working families and seniors with limited incomes. The 2026 CHFA income limits for 60%, it's $60,000 a year for one person, $86,000 a year for a household of 4, and $114,000 for a household of 8. So you can imagine sort of how those incomes play out with the inflation that we've seen with regard to housing lately. Alex did a great job of explaining the whole site, but both buildings will be 5 stories tall. That's well below the PUD maximum of 140 feet, so well below. And that's, out of respect for context of the site and what's going on around us. There is an approved site plan for single-family attached and detached housing immediately to the west, which looks like it's south on this plan, just because of the angle of all of this. But let's see. And we do have the backyard park just across the street and Tributary Park just to our north. So there are great sidewalk connections and close connections to parks and amenities and trails just outside of our site, including a Sheridan Underpass Trail and Tributary Park just to the north. Next slide, please. This is an image, conceptual image of the proposed courtyard for the senior living facility. It features a meandering pathway that guides residents through the courtyard, and it creates opportunities to pause in seating areas with lots of native and pollinator-friendly landscaping per the baseline PUD. Residents will be able to enjoy a cut flower garden, an outdoor kitchen with 2 grills, and a flexible lawn for recreation and gatherings. And adjacent to the outdoor kitchen, there will be tables for dining and socializing. So this is really intended to create a space that allows for, social connection with fellow residents, relaxation, and recreation. Next slide, please. This is an image of the proposed courtyard for the family side of the building. There's a pathway through here that guides residents and visitors to 2 separate playgrounds, one for sort of preschool, toddler age kids, and then one for elementary school. We know it's important that they both have their own spaces and, the rambunctious bigger ones aren't knocking anybody down. The landscape in here will also have educational opportunities with signage that highlights the pollinator species and native plants proposed in this area. There are outdoor tables for meals and gatherings, and all of this is immediately adjacent to an indoor fitness room with the intent that fitness activities inside can sort of spill into the outdoors. So really trying to reinforce that sense of community and creating a place for the little kids, the bigger kids, the parents, or the non-senior age households without kids that all may find themselves in this building. Next slide, please. Since we submitted our concept in the spring, we have developed the architecture further. So we're excited to have some conceptual imagery of the proposed buildings in here now. The architecture of this proposed community is intended to align with this established baseline context with a clear identity for each of the buildings, even though several of them are connected. So consistent with that North Park PUD, all the buildings provide visual variety through changes in material, color, texture, form, and facade articulation. And this building we're looking at right now is the Early Childhood Education Building. That's a little bit smaller than the rest of the site, and it has this playful expression and bright colors, really appropriate to its use for childcare. It's on the southeast corner of the site, immediately adjacent to the senior building. So you can see that in the bottom right image. Next slide, please. So now we're jumping to the family building, sort of on the north side of the site. The buildings share related architectural language, but this family building specifically has a little bit warmer colors and active expression. What we're seeing here is the first view, or the top of the page, is a view from Peak Street, roughly where homes in phase 4 of Parkside West will be. And then lower, we're seeing it from sort of a bird's eye view across Sheridan Parkway. You can see the full Sheridan streetscape in there, the median, and then how this building sort of interacts with the topography. You'll notice that you can see a full 5 stories on the left-hand side of the screen, but really more just like 4 stories as you get onto Sheridan, dealing with that grade change. Next slide, please. The senior building architecturally and sort of aesthetically has a little more calmer and refined presence. This is also depicted from Peak Street and Sheridan Parkway. So it uses a little bit cooler colors. It defines its entrance differently with this portico share that you see just to the right of the Early Childhood Education Building. And then in the image on the bottom, that's the view catty corner across Sheridan and Preble Creek Parkway. And in this image, in the bottom right, you can see the senior building, the garage just to the north of it, and then the family building off in the distance. So there is a lot that we're doing on this site, but there are actually minimum requirements for how much affordable housing is provided in baseline per these or per these development agreements. So there's a lot of attention given to breaking up these buildings while still making them look cohesive, which is a tricky task. We want things to look separate, but unified. So the garage pushes back a little bit and it's organized into sort of smaller visual bays. There's a strategy focused on sort of reducing that visual impact of the garage and actually bringing in a really playful element through some creative screening that will prevent you from seeing headlights or cars driving around and parking in there. And there's a lot of inspiration throughout all of these buildings taken from the movement of native grasses and pollinator landscapes that define the landscape throughout the baseline community. Next slide. So this is a great overview and something that we'd like to leave on so that it's easy for us to point out any buildings or landscape questions as we proceed. But we welcome your questions and comments, and we're really excited to bring this affordable housing to Broomfield.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there any members of the Land Use Review Commission here tonight who would like to provide any feedback? Not seeing anyone. Any other boards and commission members who would like to comment on this proposal? Nope. Well, now we'll proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. But we'll start with in-person comments. So if you'd like to be heard, please make your way to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Kristen Heiser, Executive Director of the Broomfield Housing Alliance. My purpose tonight is to share BHA's very positive experience partnering with Lincoln Avenue Communities. For several years, the baseline development has been working to achieve meaningful affordable housing outcomes. A number of developers have explored this site, but for various reasons, many of them financial, were unable to navigate these challenges. Lincoln Avenue Communities brings the depth of expertise and experience needed to deliver the affordable homes long envisioned for this area of Broomfield. As we've gotten to know Lincoln Avenue Communities team, we have also been very impressed by their willingness to listen, partner, and think creatively about the resources and amenities they can bring to their developments. We saw this firsthand when we learned that they had incorporated an early childhood education center into another affordable housing community they developed elsewhere in Colorado. We asked them whether we could explore something similar here, and they immediately said yes. That led to an introduction to Bal Swan Children's Center, and plans are now underway, which I'm sure Debbie will be sharing, to explore bringing early childhood education to baseline. Lincoln Avenue Communities is also pursuing partnerships with nearby healthcare systems and school districts to connect local workers, including healthcare professionals, teachers, and other essential employees with these housing opportunities. And I hope I'm not talking out of turn, Ben, but in fact, today I saw an MOU come across my desk between Adams 12 and Lincoln Avenues committing to collaborating to provide housing opportunities that support the district's workforce and strengthen the communities served by Adams 12 five-star schools. Lincoln Avenue Communities has the expertise and collaborative spirit needed to make Baseline's long envisioned affordable housing a reality, and BHA is pleased to support this proposal and their partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Kuntz. I am the Executive Director of Bal Swan Children's Center, and I didn't know Kristen was coming tonight, so that's awesome. I'll read my prepared remarks so I don't just talk off the cuff because that would take more than 3 minutes. It was over 1 year ago, actually, that the Broomfield Housing Alliance learned of Lincoln Avenue Communities' desire to build in Broomfield, and Kristen Heiser put us on a call and introduced us right away to Lincoln Avenue Communities because they were building this affordable housing community in Colorado Springs containing an early childhood education center. So we have now signed an MOU with Lincoln Avenue Communities, and Bal Swan Children's Center will be the operator of the Early Childhood Center. It will serve approximately 30 to 40 infants and young toddlers. It's an age demographic that we do not serve at our current Bal Swan site, and it is not served well in the whole community of Broomfield, especially in the north part of Broomfield. The new center will address many strategic priorities of yours, including affordable housing, being a safe, supportive, inclusive community, and economic and community vitality. It will also address the priorities of Bauswan Children's Center. We are known as being a high-quality school that is inclusive and focuses on social emotional development and therapeutic services to children. We do not have infants and young toddlers at our current center, and this site allows us to work with early intervention to create a place where children can have care, the parents can have respite, therapy can occur, and hopefully some parent education. I'm working with Growing Home on some potential parent education there as well. I did receive a grant from the Daniels Fund, a planning grant, so we can build out a really robust referral service. So I can meet folks through Children's Hospital, UC Health, and make sure that this center is truly serving the population that we want to serve. We are an inclusive center. That means that we have children with disabilities in the classroom with children who are neurotypical, and we will not compromise that mission, and that aligns well with what Lincoln Avenue Communities desires as well. So I encourage you very much to consider strongly this proposal and move it forward, and I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I am Jessica Jones. I'm the director of the Broomfield Early Childhood Council, co-located with Broomfield Fish at Six Garden Center. I'll be reading from my phone so that I don't stray and try and go quickly. Thank you. So good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity for letting us speak about this affordable housing project. We are in favor of it, and I'll give you a little bit of reasons why, mostly from the heart. About a year and a half ago, BECC gave a presentation about the intersection of affordable housing and childcare. The presentation showed the two greatest financial burdens facing young families: housing and childcare. The average cost of a center-based infant care is nearly $21,000 a year, or $1,700 a month. The cost that rivals college tuition. At the same time, housing costs continue to soar, leaving many working families struggling to simply afford the basics. When we combine affordable housing with quality childcare, we aren't just building apartments, we're creating an opportunity for families to become financially stable. Parents are better able to remain in the workforce, reducing absenteeism and building their economic potential and mobility, which will strengthen our local community and creates healthier communities. The first 5 years of life are also the most important years of brain development. More than 90% of a child's brain is developed before age 5. Those early experiences shape language, academic learning, social and emotional regulation, friendship skills, sharing, conflict resolution, and build lifelong health. High-quality early childhood education provides the nurturing relationships and stimulating environments that build this foundation, especially for children who may already face adversity. Research consistently shows that children who have access to high-quality learning are more prepared for school, experience better educational outcomes, are more likely to become healthier, productive adults, and less dependent on social welfare systems. For families already living paycheck to paycheck, where are we at? Okay, sorry. I forgot my glasses too. So let me jump down here. When families lose access to affordable housing or childcare, the consequences far beyond their household budget. Financial stress affects parents' mental health, increases family instability, and can make it harder to provide consistent, nurturing relationships for young children. A project like this helps to change that trajectory. By intentionally pairing affordable housing with high-quality childcare, you're investing in prevention rather than an intervention. You're helping parents remain employed, supporting children's healthy development during the most critical years of life, and creating a pathway towards long-term economic mobility. Broomfield has long demonstrated its commitment to supporting families. This project gives us an opportunity to continue that leadership that can be a model for the state of Colorado. By recognizing that affordable housing and early childhood education are not separate issues, they are two sides of the same solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mercy Manresa. I'm a resident in Ward 1 and also on the Broomfield Early Childhood Council staff. I typically just speak off the cuff with what comes to me in the moment. So I just want to say a few things. I'm so excited to hear about the proposal for this development. I love the intersection of both families with young children, in some cases, who will have access to quality and really important and necessary childcare for families, as well as seniors to be right there as well. We often talk about them in separate instances, and I love that they come together in this project. So they are both incredibly important to serve with an aging parent who is struggling financially to stay in her home, and also knowing what it is to be a family trying to figure out how do we both work and afford childcare? Does it make sense? How do we stay in our community? And I just think it is so important for Broomfield to continue to make it an equitable place to raise a family and to age in the place that you call your home. So whether you're new to Broomfield or you've been here your entire life, we want you to be here. And I am grateful to be part of this community. I will say, just from a personal perspective, that having started my life in public housing and with a single mom raising me along with my two siblings and her trying to find childcare that was affordable, this first place I was not a safe space. So it was my mom originally, or eventually discovered that I was being put into a child seat in front of a TV for much of the day. So she very quickly took me out of that and had to find some quick things to change in my life. But having Belle Swan, who is reputable, who is recognized as an important resource here in our community, and who partners so closely with the Broomfield Early Childhood Council, even with Debbie serving on our board, it is important to have those safe spaces for children to start their lives in. So I appreciate this. I appreciate what you guys are doing, and thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to be heard? All right, then we'll move on to comments and questions from City Council. I'm thrilled. Did I go last? Oh, Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I was waiting to see if someone else wanted to jump in first. So, and thank you for all those wonderful comments. I have very limited questions. So I'll start with my comments first, which is, this is funny. This was one of my questions that is now turning into a comment. I was really curious to hear more information about the Early Childcare Center, and it's very exciting to hear that Belle Swan is involved. Ms. Coons, you and I have worked together quite a bit over the last couple of years. And so I'm very, very, very excited about that. I think that's a wonderful addition. So this is great to hear. And then the only real question I have is actually about the MGDA. And this provides, so my understanding from the memo is that this delivers some of the affordable units that were under the MGDA. What kind of guarantees do we have that we will hit that number that we anticipated, and what does that agreement look like? So that's a little bit more for staff.
I wish we had
Ready
guarantees.
to jump at once. No, I'm sorry.
I think that's why this is, the opportunity is so exciting. It's in front of us rather than us having to chase it. The second part of your conversation or question rather, Councilmember Delgadillo, is to what degree can we guarantee that the rest is met? We can't, nor can they. So we are at the whims of the market, and we are at the whims of that master development agreement.
Okay, that's helpful clarification. I did really want to know because I figured there was a little bit of, and to know what the future holds. So on that note, I'll just say that I'm very excited about this proposal. I look forward to seeing that formal application come forward. And I would encourage, as much as the developer can with the whims of the market and stuff, to please fulfill that MGDA if at all possible, because this is much needed in our community.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question? Pardon me. The agreement for McWhinney is up to 9,000 units. So the 10% or the 1190 that you're talking about would that be contingent on how many units, market rate units are actually built in baseline that would correspond to the?
The answer is yes, and we do not foresee, Reelberry has significantly adjusted that number of units down, so we are not planning on 9,000 units. It's probably more like half of that, so anticipating at the 10 or the 20%, depending upon what else they build, this checks a really big box.
Oh, thank you. Pardon me, Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say that, as I think you guys have mentioned, we've been waiting eagerly to see the affordable housing programs that come forward in baseline, and this certainly exceeded my expectations when I first heard about it. I'm still hopeful. I know there's been some discussion with Habitat for Humanity for potential additional affordable housing development in baseline, and I hope that comes forward as well. I had just a couple small questions about the development, just for clarification. My understanding is this is very similar to another development you have in the metro area. So where could people see that? Because I think this is very, very similar to that project that's already complete.
Good evening, Ben Taylor with Lincoln Avenue Communities. Thank you, Councilmember Cohen, for your question there. Yes, we are really excited to be here today. We're working with a same design team, construction team, civil team, you name it, replicating a very similar development that we did started construction on almost 2 years ago in Arvada. And so it's near, people know the Costco on Old Wads there, or on Wadsworth. It's about 2 blocks east. And so that was around 260 units of affordable housing. That was just family in particular, but similar design type, aesthetics, et cetera. And so that development is opening this fall, and I would encourage you, and I will open an invitation for anyone. I'm giving a tour of it tomorrow to a low-income housing investor that's excited investing in another development we have here in Colorado. But I'm extremely proud of that, and we have taken lessons learned from that development itself, construction efficiencies, because feasibility is the crux of all affordable development here in the state. And so please, anyone and everyone that wants to come tour, look at what we build, look at how we design and construct the developments, please, we're open. So
this will be the improved model.
This will be 2.0, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. I had a couple of questions. We're always excited when Bell Swan is involved. I'm just curious, because they do such fabulous work. Will the residents in this development have priority for the early development program, or other residents in the community?
Yeah, I can allude to that. So Debbie had mentioned there is an MOU between our two groups. We're really, really excited and happy to be connected with Bell Swan, thanks to Kristen and BHA, who initially had brought this to our attention as a great need in the community. The arrangement with us in Bell Swan will be that we'll develop and construct the facility for them, and then turn around and lease that for $1 for a minimum of 15 years to them. And we ask in return for that capital investment and effectively just conveyance of the property that they prioritize our residents. We're still figuring out how many of our residents. It really depends on demographics and who is our future residents here. But if there is not a need fulfilled by our residents, then they can open it up to the general community. So there's no restrictions on who can come in, but we just ask that anyone living at the community is a priority.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And I know you'll also be emphasizing workforce housing, so working with area employers to see potential options for them to place employees there. Last question was timeline. I think you alluded to it, but are 2028, 29, is that what we're looking at?
Yep. So our critical next steps on this, obviously beyond going through entitlements, approvals, site development plan with the city itself, is going to be securing financing from the state of Colorado through the Colorado Housing Finance Agency or Authority. Our application is actually going in 2 weeks. It's a very competitive application. So there's around an anticipated 35 applications that will be submitted. The state typically in this round, which happens once a year, can award around 10 to 11 of those developments. And so I think there's a lot going for this development, the community support, the partnerships that we've been able to create and be introduced, quite frankly. We've been very welcome here, and I do a lot of development across the state, and this has been rewarding to say the least. And so thank you for one. But two, support that we can have through that competitive application that will dictate the success of this development. And so we've invested a lot on the front end here with the hopes that we're putting together the best application. I think Broomfield is historically underfunded from the state itself. So I want to make that point clear here so that we can do as much advocacy as we can at the state level to secure that funding. With that, assuming a successful application, obviously we have entitlements, land use review committee to go through, which we're anticipating first quarter next year. Construction start would be next fall. And that would be around a 2-year construction timeframe. So we're talking move-ins beginning summer of 2029 at the earliest. It takes a long time to develop.
No, that timeline sounds great. We love timelines that are fast, don't we? Yeah.
Hey, love.
Sounds perfect. This sounds great. As I know, Ward 5 has been needing affordable housing for quite some time, workforce housing. So very excited, and hopefully we get to see the opening here shortly. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yes, I think this question is for staff. You alluded to the fact that there was a neighborhood meeting already. Is that true? And I know it's probably too recent to have, I don't think there was any reference to it in the memo, but did you have any summary that would be available from that neighborhood meeting?
Yes, so the neighborhood meeting was held on July 8th, which was really close to when we had to finalize the memo, so that was not included. With the formal application for the site development plan, a summary of that neighborhood meeting will be submitted.
Okay, thank you. We'll wait for that then. This question is for Lincoln Homes. So as much as we would like to increase the affordable income aligned housing in Broomfield, often as a council, we're faced with requests for gap financing. I know we have dedicated some of our private activity bonds to this effort. So do you anticipate that you will need to come back for any gap financing?
The short answer is no. And so your private activity bonds allocations that so far have been received are very, very impactful. That signals a very strong support. Letters of support help, right? Dollars matter. And so the private activity bonds have gone very far. And I'll say, and yet to be seen, right? Our application is going in 2 weeks to the state agency. And so assuming a successful application from the state agency, then no gap funding is needed. And I can speak confidently about that because, like I had mentioned before, that Councilmember Cohen had brought up, we are doing almost a near similar development. So a lot of times you get into these developments and you're designing something that you have not built yet, right? You have not designed yet. And you're talking about this proposal or idea. Well, here we do have tangible first anecdotal evidence of what it has cost to build a very similar type comparable. And that is 90% about of our cost, right? To build a building. So with that, I'm very confident saying no. And if so, we are not successful. We do have contingency plans. Now they are obviously not the preferred route and would make this development a lot more difficult to obtain, but I do not plan, considering your guys' private activity bond investment, the partnership with the Broomfield Housing Alliance also is a investment in this project, and the state sees it that way. And so you guys have gone above and beyond most municipalities that I've worked with in development. So thank you.
Great, thank you. This is a question, a statement kind of to looking ahead to the SDP. I've had residents who were concerned about the traffic on Sheridan coming off of Northwest Parkway, where there are ramps coming on from Northwest Parkway on to Sheridan, where there's blind angles you can't see coming off of those ramps. And I have communicated with the traffic department, and they were definitely looking at whether signal warrants would be met sometime in the near future. So as this development comes forward, I'm certainly glad it's going to house a significant number of people, but I mean, that's definitely in my mind then with more traffic right near that, those off ramps, whether those warrants will be met. And if that's part of the little larger traffic picture, in that area. So that's just a comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm so excited about this. This is something that I would have loved when my husband was deployed and I had to take care of my mom and my toddler. It just seems like a really good intergenerational piece. I did want to just ask a little bit more. Can you flesh out a little bit more about the financing again? Is CHAFA going to be involved at all? What does the financing look like?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Henkel. Great question there. So we are requesting the applications open at the end of this month. We are asking Colorado Housing Finance Authority, CHAFA for short, for a allocation of private activity bonds to finance this development, in addition to the private activity bonds that the city of and county of Broomfield have provided so far. And we are also asking them for an allocation of the state housing tax credit. And so that is something that has come into effect starting in 2016 here in Colorado. We have a state tax credit, which we combine in conjunction with the federal tax credit that we secure through our development, that we fund most of our affordable developments. And so, as I had mentioned, it's a very competitive process. Around 35 applications are going to be coming in from all around the state. This project, I believe, is very competitive for multiple reasons. And so the more advocacy, the support, the urgence at CHAFA's behest to finance this project is welcome. And so we are securing relationships, letters of support, whatever we can do to ask the state to prioritize this development is much needed. And I would like also to point out one of the biggest impacts to affordable development in the city and county of Broomfield is the loss of what we call a difficult to develop area. So if you allow me, I can just explain a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. You just touched.
Yeah, so difficult develop areas. So for one, I've been doing affordable development for over 15 years. Over 10 years, I've been located here in the Front Range doing development all across the state. I have never developed in what HUD designates. So this is the Housing Urban Development. HUD designates a difficult to develop area. Those difficult to develop areas allow for a 30% boost to the federal credits that we are awarded for our development, okay? And so I've never done one because they are not feasible. They would require too much soft funding, too much gap, too much support, quite frankly, to get them done, that they're frankly infeasible. And so right now, thanks to our work with Kristen and Broomfield Housing Alliance, we have preserved the last DDAs, that's what we call them for short, in the city and county of Broomfield. So as of 2025, Broomfield, I would say, was around 75% was covered in a difficult to development area. It lost 2 DDAs in 2026. Now, I would say the only portion of Broomfield that is covered in one of these bonus areas is north of 470, east of 25, in kind of a small little pocket. And I'm more than happy to provide you a before and after map, what has happened. But I will say that to put it into number terms on this, just the family side development, which is around 168 units of affordable development, the loss of that DDA was $7 million, okay, in the federal financing provided for this project. So that we are scraping together $500,000, $1 million to get this project feasible. The loss of $7 million makes this, quite frankly, infeasible. And so we've been able to preserve that. We've done this in the past. We have until December 31st of 2027 to issue the bonds that BHA has been awarded and will ideally get awarded from CHAFA to have the sufficient bond capacity to finance both projects. If we were able to do that, we retain the boost, and that brings an additional, I would say, around $13 million of federal financing and resources into Broomfield. Okay, so I've been obviously in contact with Realberry. We've worked with them. I know their affordable covenants. This was part of the deal in the land that we're obviously working on today. I made this very aware to them last spring or last fall when we were able to project, we can look out to say what HUD's going to do next year, and they were losing this, and so we got into action, worked with BHA to secure it and preserve it. Future affordable development in the baseline area, quite frankly, is extremely difficult to do in the future. And so I want to emphasize that this is our one shot to get a significant amount of affordable housing that's feasible, that we're not coming to you to gap funding, et cetera. Done. Now is the time. And so I think that message, we are going to make that message very clear to CHFA. And so anyone and everyone that is here today or willing to support this and advocate on our behalf to CHFA to make sure that that happens and we get the funding from them necessary would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I've been in the Chafa meetings. They're pretty tough.
Yeah.
They're long and they ask really hard questions and not everyone gets that funding. And so I would like to advocate just to this community sitting here and beyond that you help write letters, help be a good advocate in that regard. What do you foresee as net positives and maybe things that we need to make sure that we are really communicating well about this project to CHFA? I've been in meetings where CHFA denied the project, saying it's not even close to transportation, which blew my mind because it was right next to the RTD station. And so I just thought it might have been an excuse at that time. So I just want to make sure that we're hitting the stride right with CHFA. We're hitting them in the right spot. What will childcare bring to that conversation? What does this project bring to CHFA to show to them, hey, we're not only good for the money on our side with our other funding, but what does the project bring that you think will get them to approve it?
Yep. I think there's a multitude of answers to that. And I would encourage anyone that wants to reach out to CHFA or help us advocate on our behalf, please coordinate with me. I've worked with CHFA for well over a decade now. And so it's a subjective process. So it isn't, quite frankly, points. A lot of states we work in, as you score points, you get an award based on kind of how many points you get. Here it's a lot more high touch. And so one, please reach out to me if you would love to interact or engage with CHFA for advocacy. But two, I would say like the high points on this one are the lack of a DDA bonus area in this state, right? We're able to do this in the next year and a half, and we had received an additional $7 million of federal funding just for one phase of this, $13 million between the two. That comes directly into Broomfield. Two, the proximity is something that CHFA focuses on. So the development in the area, they're mandated to effectively disperse the state resources throughout the state equitably. Broomfield has never won one of these competitive state tax credit rounds. It also, the location of this project is farthest from almost every other application in their current round. And so we do not have a lot of affordable housing development in this area. You go to Denver, you go 3 blocks and you're going to have a development that's funded in the last 3 years from CHFA, right? I can send you the map of affordable developments in this location, very limited. Our time is now. The ECE comes with, along with development. I can't say that many other developers have figured out how to incorporate ECEs into their development. We have done it successfully last year in Colorado Springs. Very excited about doing it again here. I'm actually presenting this year at the Affordable Housing Conference for Colorado on how to build affordable housing with ECEs in conjunction. There's a lot of nuance that happens with those, as you can imagine, bringing childcare in with a multifamily development. And so I think those are kind of the high points here. The last piece of that is that we have the funding and we're able to finance the second phase. We've really talked about this as a holistic development here at this concept review, but what we are submitting to CHFA is simply just for funding on phase 1, which we are calling the family phase. So what we're also asking of them is we are the lowest ask per unit in the state resource just on our family deal. If we are able to secure the financing for our family phase, we are also able to finance the senior phase. That brings 327 units for the funding of one deal. Okay. That by a magnitude of 3 to 4 is lower than every other application out there right now with the state of Colorado. We're able to build these incredibly efficiently, a high quality product, and we know what we're doing. And so that's the leverage we can bring. So asking the state to spend the least amount per unit to bring the most bottom affordable housing in an area that does not have affordable housing, nor will have any in the future, I think makes a very compelling case.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. That's important because we've approved so many housing units and we're not always seeing something go into the ground. And so this will be really important. My last just sort of opinion piece about this. I love the idea, the concept. I have driven my kids to preschool many times, and I'm sure many people in this area have too. My only concern is just safety in the area, making sure we have good drop-off times and then space for kids to be dropped off for that area, and just making sure that we have adequate parking for any of the teachers as well. And I would love it if even teachers could live over there as well. So thank
So
you.
would we.
Yes,
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
All right, thank you. I think this first question is for staff, and this is going back to the question that Mayor Pro Tem asked about the neighborhood meeting. We'll wait the more in-depth report, but just curious if there's any like high-level feedback. Were there like concerns raised, or was it generally supportive? Is there anything we should be aware of that the neighborhoods flagged, the residents flagged?
Alex and I were both in that meeting. I'll be happy to answer. We did have a lot of inquisitive neighbors, or I say a lot. I think there were less than a dozen neighbors in the meeting. And we notified a pretty large circumference. I think it's 1,000 feet. I'm sure that's written somewhere. Our neighbors did have concerns that we often hear around affordable housing with regard to reduction in land values, concerns about height of buildings, and sort of questions about what is permitted with the existing PUD. We did explain that affordable, well, housing of any sort and income-aligned housing is a use by right in the PUD, that we are well below the PUD design thresholds for height limits, and, you know, touched on the fact that the question around home values is very common with regard to affordable or income-aligned housing, but there isn't really any evidence to show that property values do drop as housing is developed, regardless of that income level. So things that we often hear with any sort of housing proposal, and then comments that are often associated with income restricted housing.
Okay, thank you for that additional information. I just want to also comment on the playgrounds. I love the fact that those playgrounds are internal to the buildings and keeping the kids away from that busy road that they'll be on. So that was really good. Curious about the collaboration with the retirement community. Is the thought here to have some interaction between the residents in the retirement community with the toddlers and the infants? And is there any concern over some of these, like the medically fragile kids would be kept separate maybe, or how? But that all seems to be a good.
Right. I would defer to our Bal Swan attendees on that item.
I would just say, yes, we're super excited about that partnership just because community is important, especially as we age. And this gives people a sense of purpose to come over and help with infants and toddlers. But we have to follow a pretty strict protocol around background checks and medical plans. So if there's a vulnerable baby, there would be limits to the handling that can be done by someone who's not trained.
But there'd be enough children they could interact with. So yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
That's really amazing. Okay, and then question about this site is really nice because of the access to Colorado 7 and the starter service, which also gets you to access to I-25. And one thing I did not see, and this is normally Councilmember Ward would probably normally ask about this, was the bike parking, bike lockers. What are the thoughts for any like sharing bike service in the in the parking structure or places to store those bikes? That seems like a critical piece for some of these residents to get to that
I can
location.
touch on that, but I also have architecture coming up. No, come on up. We do have, I believe it's 34 bike parking or bike spaces outside of the building as a part of the landscape plan. And then indoor bike parking is part of our architectural plans.
Yes, so thank you for letting me speak. For the residents, there is through the PUD quite a few kind of direct requirements for how much bike parking is provided and where it's provided, whether that is short-term parking for bikes, long-term parking for bikes. Within the amenity plans, like fix-it stations and bike repair stations, as well as kind of gear lounges, are things that we are looking at incorporating to allow residents to kind of have access to those types of facilities, as well as long-term bike storage, both for within the senior building and within the family, whether that's directly within their buildings or whether that's kind of a shared within spaces in the parking deck. But absolutely is additional parking on top of what the requirement that Norris is working through.
Okay, thank you so much. That sounds great. That is all of my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions that are interrelated, Ben. The first is, can you walk us through the contingencies of the life cycle of this development? It sounded as though the senior might be contingent on the family, and this whole thing is contingent on the application in 2 weeks, right? So these are some contingencies that I just noted. And then the second question, which is related, is in the scenario analysis, is there any scenario in which the early childhood education does not come to fruition?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember McKenzie. Those are great questions and stuff that we have thought through. And so I'd say option A and plan A is obviously what I outlined earlier. So you're asking more about what happens if that doesn't happen. So there's two things that we need to get this development done. Private activity bonds. Those bonds are what finance our development and allow us to qualify for the low-income housing tax credit from the federal side, okay? The second is gap funding. And so between the two phases, the family phase or phase one is proposed to be the first to be developed. That has the largest gap because it is paying for the parking garage superstructure as well as the ECE. So in a hypothetical, if we are able to only finance one because the private activity bonds from the city and county of Broomfield, we've also received support and an allocation of private activity bonds from the city of Erie as well. So I want to give kudos to Kristen and team for advocating for that as well. Every dollar matters. And so we would be able to have the bonds for phase one. Then at that point, if the state of Colorado, CHFA, were not to select our project this year. Then we would turn on to what the gap is needed for that phase one development if we were just to move forward with that. And it is being designed and contemplated as a two-phase development with a shared parking structure. That gap, the state tax credits that we're asking the Colorado Housing Finance Authority for equate to around $6 million in gap funding, okay? And so we would need to be out there and secure $6 million of gap funding. That's not unheard of. We are closing another development later this year in downtown Denver that I've secured close to $9 million of gap funding from the Division of Housing, but that also has Denver Host, which is their affordable housing arm that provided over $5 million of gap. So it is possible. It just makes our life a lot harder, and we need to focus on simply getting phase one completed. And so, you know, there is avenues for securing private activity bonds additionally to fund that phase two, for example. That does not need gap funding as it stands. Phase one is the most expensive, as I alluded to, with the superstructure and the ECE. So ECE stays. Phase one would then be the priority. We would obviously be out there trying to combine both because the cost savings of constructing two of these developments at the same time is significant. I'm talking in the millions of dollars, right? Mobilization cost, GCs, engineering, all that stuff. And so don't want to go there quite yet. I have my hopes, but we do have a backup plan if needed. That answer your question? Thank you, sir.
Is that all, Councilmember McKenzie? All right, Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. This sounds amazing, and I'm really excited about it. I do have a couple questions. I like that you put in some decorative elements to the outside of the parking garage, so that it's a little more seamless as you're looking from the street. I think that's great. And the memo talked about the parking spaces and bike parking associated with that. I'm assuming there's also ADA parking and electric vehicle charging plans for that as well. Okay, and that there will be elevators throughout for both the parking structure and the housing structures.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, and then just out of curiosity, if for some reason the project were not to move forward, would the private equity bonds that have been committed by the city and county of Broomfield be reallocated at that point?
Yeah, I would say in a worst case scenario, if this project were deemed to not be able to move forward, I believe the first allocation of private activity bonds that the project has received from city and county of Broomfield over to BHA were 2025 private activity bonds. Those bonds would need to be used and issued by the end of 2028.
I see.
So our boost that I had mentioned ends at the end of 27. And so there would be a firm year. Once that passes, this project really becomes infeasible. And so you would have at least a year to figure out somewhere else to place and use those bonds.
Okay, well, hopefully that's not an issue. And then I just had one question about the childcare center. A mention was made to the standard cost of childcare these days, but I don't recall specifically what the estimated cost for childcare at this facility would be for the residents.
Assuming that the families qualify for childcare subsidy and there is a subsidy available, which is frozen now in our county, families would get a subsidy for childcare assistance. So the cost could range anywhere from $0 to the family to, yeah, it could be cost up to $1,500 a month. One of our goals at Bao Swan, as we're figuring this place out, is to figure out how to braid funding so our center is also sustainable. And that's part of the goal around the therapy. If we have early intervention and we're working through with A&I Avenues on, there's a funding stream for early intervention. Families can come to this center to receive therapy for their child. Then there's a funding stream for us. In addition to Medicaid can be billed for respite services and other services. So we are thinking about a financially sustainable plan as well if there's not childcare subsidy available for families.
Oh, that's wonderful. And clearly you have a lot of experience with this. So that's feeling very confident about that. Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
All right, thank you. Any other feedback from my colleagues? I have a couple of questions, then if no one else wants to go. I do want to also do a shout out to Erie for granting us their public activity bonds. We gave ours away a couple of years ago because we weren't in a position to use them. So I feel like it's, full circle that someone gave us some when we needed it. What percentage of the units will be 60% AMI and how many will be less 50% AMI? I read something. It didn't specify how many.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. And we have been, since the submittal of this concept plan, have been refining our AMIs that we are going to use for this upcoming application to make it the most competitive possible. So very high level, the 100% of both projects will be 100% affordable, meaning that they are going to average to 60% AMI or less. currently our application in for the family phase for Chaffa, we're going to average around 56.5% of area median income. What that means is we are going to have some 70% AMI units. We're going to have a bulk of 60% units. And then we have 30% of our units are going to be at 50% AMI or less.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw some snaps in the back. Well, I don't have any questions or concerns. Like I said in the beginning, I'm thrilled at this proposal, and I'd be willing to write a letter of support to Chaffa, and I'm sure my council colleagues would love to join me. So thank you so much for bringing this project to Broomfield. Thank you to every one of you here, our housing advocates, our early childhood advocates. It fills my heart because this does check so many boxes. Thank you to McWinney. Thank you all. Couldn't be happier. So thank you. We hope to see you again soon, and good luck. Let us know how we can help. All right. Next on the agenda is a concept review for an income-aligned housing project. Another one planned at 11,700 Wadsworth Boulevard in the original Broomfield neighborhood. Again, this is a review of the concept application only. It's not a formal application, and no decisions by council on this matter will be made tonight. When a formal application is submitted, it will go through the full approval process, including a land use review commission hearing and a council hearing. We'll follow the city's standard procedures for concept plan reviews as outlined previously. Electronic copies can be found at broomfieldvoice.com. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum for this proposal, and I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Us is Ted Harburg. He's our senior planner, and he's going to walk us through this item. Mr. Harburg.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. Again, my name is Ted Harburg, Senior Planner. And the topic of this presentation is a concept review for a final plat, rezoning, use by special review, and urban renewal site plan for an income-aligned housing project located at 11700 Wadsworth Boulevard. This site is also known locally as the VFW Post 9565. The purpose of this project is to allow a 60-unit income-aligned apartment building being proposed by the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless for veterans, serving individuals earning between 30% and 60% of the area median income, or AMI. Next slide. The project location at 11700 Wadsworth Boulevard is a mixed-use area of Broomfield with several properties in an active stage of redevelopment. The property is located east of Wadsworth Boulevard and west of the railroad tracks. It is also located 1 block away from a future passenger rail station as anticipated by the original Broomfield neighborhood plan located at West 116th Avenue. The site is also within walking distance of the Flatiron Flyer bus rapid transit. The property is currently 3.17 acres in size, and it is proposed to be subdivided into 2 parcels for this proposal. The Broomfield Comprehensive Plan designation for the subject property is split by mixed-use commercial and transit-oriented development, and this proposal is consistent with these land use designations. Next slide. So to accommodate the proposed 60-unit apartment building, the applicant will need to establish a Broomfield subdivision plat, create a separate lot for the proposed apartment building, and dedicate any necessary right-of-way and easements. The applicant will also need to rezone the property to a Broomfield zone district that allows both the proposed residential use and the existing VFW post, which is defined as a membership club. The applicant is proposing to rezone the northern parcel to R5 medium high density residential district and the southern parcel to B1 limited business district, accompanied by an application for a use by special review for the existing VFW. A use by special review is required in the B1 zone district in order to accommodate the existing VFW use because this is considered a membership club in the B1 zone district. And finally, this proposal would require the approval of an urban renewal site plan for the proposed apartments. The concept review package includes a conceptual site plan and conceptual architecture for the apartments. Next slide. So the conceptual site layout on the screen shows the building that's being proposed at the north side of the site with 50 parking spaces located immediately south of the building and conceptual amenities including a community courtyard, community garden, a pet area, and a sport court, among other features, which our applicant can explain. A detention and water quality area would separate the proposed parking area from the existing VFW property and parking lot. And this water quality area is shown on the site plans to include landscaping, including a loop trail and birdhouses. The property owner will need to define cross-vehicular access between the two proposed lots as a part of the upcoming subdivision plat. Cross-property access is necessary in order to allow left turns onto Wadsworth, which will only be at the south end of the site due to a anticipated hard median. And because of that, traffic engineering is anticipating that raised median, which will only allow that southern access. As discussed in the council memo, staff would like to encourage the applicant to explore placing internal site access further away from Wadsworth Boulevard, but the applicant will also be asked to further clarify any turning radii and other details about the existing VFW parking lot during the formal review of the use by special review for the VFW. Next slide. The City and County of Broomfield standards for public notice requirements have been met for this case. The applicant hosted a neighborhood meeting on July 9th, about 10 days ago, and staff has identified the following potential key issues as noted on the slide. Next slide. Thank you. This concludes the staff summary, and the applicant is also here to provide a presentation and more details about the project, answer questions, and to get your comments.
Wonderful, thank you. The applicant's presentation is next. Will the applicant's representative please make their way to the podium? State your name for the record before beginning your presentation.
Good evening, Council. My name is Max Labarsky. I'm the Director of Development for the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and I'm just so excited to be here, and I appreciate all the time and effort and really enjoyed the previous presentation as well, and just excited that there's so much affordable housing happening in Broomfield, which is great. Next slide, please. In this presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about the coalition, what we do. We'll talk a little bit about the site, the proposed project, and then I'll walk through a brief timeline. Next slide, please. So this is our project team. As I mentioned, Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, we're right in the middle. We are playing the role of developer, applicant for this project. Also, we provide the property management on all of our properties and provide supportive wraparound services as part of the site as well. The landowner is the VFW, Post 9565. They have been just a phenomenal inspirational partner. We are so excited to help realize their vision to give back to the community and provide veterans housing. So we're honored that they have chosen us to work with them on this project. And then our architect and design team is led by Shopworks Architecture. They are based in Denver, and I have a colleague from Shopworks here today too, who's happy to answer any technical questions as well. Next slide, please. A little bit about us, the Coalition. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are now in our 42nd year of providing housing, healthcare, and supportive services for homeless individuals and families across the state of Colorado. We were conceived in 1984 by a small group of young individuals who really wanted to provide healthcare services for individuals experiencing homelessness where there just wasn't any available. And pretty soon thereafter, we realized, boy, we better start providing housing too, because that is critical to this continuum of care. So we started building housing in the 1990s and haven't stopped. We have since built healthcare centers in the Metro Denver area. We assist 15,000 individuals each year through our health services. And just last night, we provided housing for over 4,000 individuals and families throughout the metro area. Next slide, please. I want to touch on our affordable housing development. Specifically, we have done all types of development throughout the Denver metro area. We have done affordable, sort of traditional affordable non-service housing. We've done family-focused housing. We've done veterans housing. We've done permanent supportive housing. We've done high-rise, walk-ups, townhomes, family-focused units, retail, office. We even run our own childcare center here in Lakewood, Colorado. So we've done a little bit of everything, and it gives us a real breadth and depth of experience and know-how to make a project like this come to fruition. The picture on the right is one of our family projects in the Lowry neighborhood of Denver. Next slide, please. And then I want to highlight specifically our work with veterans, as it's so critical to this project. The picture on the right is a veterans only apartment building in Aurora, Colorado, next to the VA. That is also 60 units of veterans housing that has a combination of VASH vouchers and Colorado State vouchers, and provides housing and services to veterans in Aurora. We also run a transitional housing program for veterans called the VA GPD, or Grants Per Diem program. We run those out of two of our facilities called Renewal Village and one called Victory House. We also have a Veterans Employment Assistance and Homeless Reintegration program, and we have a recovery-oriented facility down in Fort Lyons, southeast Colorado, and Animas. Just last year, we provided all of these amazing services to over 600 veterans in Colorado. Next slide, please. As Ted alluded to, this is a little more detail on the project. We had really two big goals in this project. One is to provide veterans housing, and two is to preserve the institution that is the VFW post 9565. So this rezoning proposal and replat proposal, we hope achieves both of those things. And I want to focus on the R5 multifamily use on the north portion of the screen, as the VFW post 9565 is really meant to preserve and be as is as part of this project. Next slide, please. This is our concept plan. As Ted alluded to, we've got a lot of different amenities around the site and inside the building as well. We've learned a lot from our other veterans projects, specifically the one in Aurora, Colorado, which is very, very similar. I'll just mention briefly, in our sort of early planning stages with the VFW folks, we gave them a tour of our veterans facility in Aurora, and they were just blown away by sort of all of the different design elements we've incorporated and way that we've really tried to cater specifically to veterans in this community. So we're excited to take some of those lessons learned, or some of those great things about that project, plus lessons learned, into this project as well. Next slide, please. Just to highlight a few of the details, this is proposed to be 60 units in over 3 stories in housing for veterans, with both ground floor and on-site amenities throughout. Some of the amenities inside the building are service-oriented, which I'll get to on the next slide. We're also providing 50 parking spaces here. And of course, with our great neighbors of the VFW, there is available for overflow parking into the VFW site should a large event or other type of use require that. And then I want to give a shout out to Shopworks Architecture, who's our design professionals on this project. They have really been the forefront of leader of dignified design and trauma-informed design principles, which really at its base level recognize that the built environment has a significant impact on the mental health and the feeling as we walk into buildings. And they have this down to a science. And we are thrilled to work with them as they help us develop how this building will specifically interact with this specific community we hope to attract in this building. Next slide, please. 2 other things I just want to mention. One is the proximity to the existing rail line, as Ted alluded to in the presentation, which we hope will be home to the future Front Range Rail in a few short years. We do have experience developing and creating projects like this next to rail. And one of the main concerns is how do we mitigate noise from trains that are going down the rail. And I'm sure my architect colleague can talk about things like STC ratings and all these design details, but really the wall assembly and the window, and we put premium pricing on the window and the wall assembly to create a calm environment inside the building and mitigate all of that noise. And then I just want to highlight a couple of the case management services that we anticipate bringing to the site. And as with all of our developments, residents in this project would have access to both the on-site services that we hope to provide, plus the off-site services that we provide, mostly in Denver and throughout the state. These include individual case management, counseling, benefits acquisition, employment services, individual and group therapy sessions, and the like. They are really tailored individually to the specific residents that choose to live in this community. And with all of our services, they are optional services. So residents do not have to engage in them if they are not comfortable, but we certainly encourage that, and we have strategies to make sure that we're creating and learning and creating with our residents how to maintain stable housing. Next slide, please. A brief overview. So July 9th is our neighborhood meeting. I want to thank Councilwoman Twist for attending. We are here today on the study session. We anticipate our formal application coming in August. Through the fall, we would anticipate our Land Use Review Commission and other public hearings. And then in February of 2027, we'll be submitting also to the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. This is a different type of tax credit. So it's a different timeline than the previous presentation that we just saw, and happy to get into the weeds as much as we want about that. But anyway, we'll be submitting for what's called the 9% tax credit in February 2027. That is also a very competitive process. If we were to be awarded, we anticipate a 2028 construction to commence, and then mid to late 2029, the project would open. Next slide, please. This is my contact information as well as my colleague at CCH. Of course, there's a link to our Broomfield Voice, which I'm sure you're very well aware of how to access it, but this is my contact information for anyone who's interested, and I appreciate and welcome any questions and comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lebarski. Are there any members of the Land Use Review Commission here now? Any other boards and commissions who'd like to provide feedback? Still no. Okay. Then we're going to move on to public comments. If anyone would like to be heard on this proposal, please make your way to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Roxy Jula Lockmore. I've commented on this before, but this is a wonderful thing. We need it. Everybody needs this, so it will help us all. The only thing, and I know you had it in your presentation for sure this time, but I will reiterate that you must make sure you have noise canceling around the railroad tracks. For the folks that will be using this housing, it is adamant that you have noise canceling in your walls, your windows, everything, ceiling, floor, I don't care, figure out something. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi and good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Amanda Ropek and I'm a senior project manager with the Broomfield Housing Alliance. And BHA is very excited about the proposed partnership between the VFW and Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, proposing to create 60 affordable, supportive homes for veterans in our community. Broomfield's 2023 Housing Needs Assessment demonstrates why this housing is so important. Veteran households represent approximately 6% of Broomfield's population. Nearly half of those, about 48%, are age 65 or older, and 1 in 5 veterans has a disability. Additionally, the median household income of veterans is only about 60% of the median household income of Broomfield's overall population. Together, these findings highlight the need for affordable housing that supports veterans as they age and help those living with disabilities or limited incomes remain connected to their community.
This proposal would provide veterans earning between 30 and 60% of the area median income with safe, stable homes and access to supportive services. It would also transform an underutilized property into a thoughtfully designed community asset while honoring the VFW's long-standing commitment to serving veterans in our community. Those who served our country should be able to find stability, connection, and a place to call home in Broomfield. We encourage the council to support this proposal and continue working with the partners to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay, we'll move on to council questions and comments next. My colleagues want to go first. Councilmember Delgadillo.
All right, breaking the ice here. I really don't have a ton on this one specifically. I also am very, very excited about this project, so I do want to kick things off with that. Can the applicant speak a little bit more to the placement of the driveway? Because that was raised as a staff concern, and whether there were any other placements that were considered. Is it viable to do that sort of thing? That is one of the concerns that was voiced, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
I am Stacy Twig with Shopworks Architecture. I think the placement of the driveway is really at this point to allow for flexibility for the VFW in their future endeavors. I think if we put it too far into the site, it limits the area that they're able to redevelop in.
Okay. So it does sound like it would be prohibitive to put it elsewhere. Is that a reasonable statement?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In that case, I mean, we take applications as a whole, still very excited about this. I would, on that note, the thing that I would ask is whether to kind of minimize pedestrian conflicts, improve that safety of that area, whether it ever makes sense to kind of, for traffic, to ever stick in a light, like one of those flashing lights or something. I would encourage us to think about what we can do in lieu of better placement for that. That's one item. And then I think on the financing, can we go a little bit into the weeds? Just a smidge.
Please, yes.
Yes. So one of the items that was raised was, what does the capital stack look like without the PABs? And I know you mentioned that Chaffa application. Is there anything else we should, that's worth going over when it comes to the financing of this project? And is that Councilmember McKenzie kind of alluded to this in the previous one? Anything we should anticipate that could be a challenge or a stumbling block?
Yeah, so let me just clarify a couple things that are different between this project and the previous project. So in the tax credit world, generally speaking, there are two buckets of federal tax credits. One is called the 4% tax credit, and one is called the 9% tax credit. And just for purposes of this conversation, what's important about the 4% tax credit is that you need to come with an allocation of private activity bonds. And that's what our previous application did. Typically, generally speaking, those type of applications or type of projects tend to be larger. And that's because, generally speaking, the 4% tax credit generates less equity or cash for the developer. This project is a 9% tax credit project. The 9% tax credit is also a very, very competitive process, but it does not require an allocation of private activity bonds. So this project would not seek or need private activity bonds from either the City or County of Broomfield nor Chaffa. Typically, that the equity generated from the 9% tax credit can stretch longer into the project. And roughly speaking, generalizing here, A 9% project generates about 70% of its capital stack from the 9% equity. The 4% project, generally speaking, can generate about 30% of its capital stack from that equity. Now in Colorado, we're lucky enough to have a state tax credit, which helps increase the equity on both the 4% and 9% projects, lowering that gap. But on this project, again, to answer your question, the private activity bonds will not be part of the project. The other sort of gap fillers are out there as developers we go chase, and that is, there are some specialized grants and other low cost financing that's specifically for veterans projects, which this project would be eligible for. We think we're in a really good place with all those things put together.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
That was great. That was the right amount of in the weeds.
Okay.
At least for me. So I really appreciate that.
Perfect.
And then, I just had one more comment. I guess, Ms. Jewell brought up a interesting point about the railroad. I will note, and this is a light concern, but not a super meaningful one. It is in kind of the airport influence area, but not directly under anything. So I wouldn't expect it to be super loud, but just keep that in mind, making sure that we are building with a little extra noise in mind. That's the only thing, but not, I know it's not in the area that I'd be really concerned about.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Lim next.
Yes, I think also, well, the developers at the podium, I think I don't have as many questions from them. So you put the sports court by the railroad tracks. Just thinking.
Sure. I'll pass it off to our wonderful design team.
All right, so I just wanted to note that the current site plan and the site amenities are still very much
Up
being
in the air.
conceptualized. We are required to have a fire lane in the area where that sport court is. And so in order to make better use of that sort of required asphalt, we thought it would be a good spot to also activate for people usage.
Okay, I was just picturing balls flying onto the railroad track. Okay, that's that. So the sustainability features were fairly standard. I guess I would just encourage the developer to see what they can do. Harvest Hill, which is up the street, did get Colorado Clean Energy funding for on-site supplementary solar. And so certainly, if you can do anything like that, that would be wonderful too. Do you want to comment?
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely and noted.
Okay, thanks. I think these are for staff. What does it mean in the memo on page 4? It says the plat will include any necessary public right-of-way and easements to Broomfield. What are we anticipating there?
Yes, so our traffic engineers are not with us this evening, but my understanding is that because this is an unplatted parcel, there is some right-of-way that is desired along Wadsworth Boulevard, as well as those easements that cross the property. So Broomfield always requires a public access easement within parking lots, and that's for the drive aisles, places where we expect fire trucks to want to come through. So that there may also be utility easements, other type of easements that are common with plats, new subdivision plats.
Okay. Also on page 4 of the memo, there was a discussion of about a couple paragraphs anyway, trying to ascertain what the correct zoning was for the VFW, where the VFW building is going to be for that parcel. Do we feel confident now that we have the right zoning that rezoning that they're going after?
So I guess my response to that would be that there are several possible zone districts that could accommodate the development that's being proposed. We are confident that the zone districts that the applicant is requesting are appropriate for this location and would fulfill the needs of the project.
Okay. In this B1 zoning for the VFW building, it said that there will be a use by special review to maintain the existing VFW building. Because it's a membership club, you mentioned that in your presentation. There's also a mention of we need to ensure it will be a legal conforming use. And I've seen the building. I mean, is there a question? I mean, it looks like a Quonset hut. Is there a question if the building fits the architectural specifications, or what is the question with ensuring it will be a legal conforming use?
So I think the legal conforming use is really about the land use as opposed to the structure or the building characteristics of that structure. The VFW is a membership club, and under the Broomfield Municipal Code, there are very limited zone districts that a membership club is allowed to be in. I believe the memo also cites that there are 2 zone districts in the whole municipal code that would allow a membership club as a use by right, meaning it would not require use by special review. Those zone districts, when we reviewed them, did not appear to be appropriate for this location, whereas the B1 zone district would be appropriate for this location given the comprehensive plan designation. It just requires that extra step of the use by special review to fully bring it into compliance.
Okay, so there's no question about previously, the architecture of the building was fine for the way it was zoned, but now there might be questions. Is that a possibility? That's what I was trying to ascertain.
Mayor Pro Tem, the planning division did not do any review of the building itself and the structure. So that would be something the buildings division would need to weigh in on.
Okay.
So this is just land use zoning.
Okay, thank you. When I ask a question about the 116th Avenue rail station, when I saw this VFW property concept review coming forward, staff replied that CDOT and FRPR teams are actively reviewing this concept review and will submit feedback prior to the deadline. So did staff mean like tonight, or because we didn't see it?
No.
Or did you mean when we have it before us for a vote?
Yes, it'll definitely be that information we can provide before it comes for a vote. I think really the intention of that statement was that the full review comments will be provided to the applicant, and CDOT's team is reviewing that. They have provided us with partial comments, and our intention is to provide the full comments to the applicant along with internal and external review comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Henkel?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for your presentation. This is very meaningful to our ward and to my family in particular. My mom was unhoused, living on the streets for 3 years due to mental instability. And then my husband is a war veteran. And we have seen a lot of needs, throughout the state to really make sure that we are fully funding housing for people who are having any sort of mental crisis and or mental instability in their lives, as well as our veterans. Many times our veterans don't want to get care, so it's nice that it's going to be there. I think that it's very carefully minded in that sense. Are we having any thoughts on the data behind having 1 bedrooms only versus 2 bedrooms, or what's the thought behind just 1 bedrooms?
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Councilwoman. As I mentioned, this project is generally modeled after a pretty successful 1-bedroom veterans project that we have in Aurora. However, we're not on the same timeline as the previous applicant was. So, this process will continue as we develop with our market study information and understanding better the market of the project. And if a couple of 2 bedrooms make sense in this project from both either a veterans family situation, or we've had some units in our portfolio have like a live-in aid type of situation in a 2-bedroom, we can certainly incorporate that into this project. And the 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom sort of mix of the building wouldn't have an impact on the R5 zoning that we're requesting.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear about that. I would like to have the 2-bedroom mainly for the caregiver piece of it. And if they have family come in, it's very easy as a veteran to become very siloed and feel very alone, even if you're surrounded by family. So I appreciate that. Are there any programs or any issues that we would have with pets or service dogs or anything like that with this project?
No, we would operate a very pet inclusive property. In many of our properties, in some of our properties that aren't veterans properties, we do have a service only animals requirement, but that threshold is pretty much the lowest you could possibly get. So in this project, we wouldn't institute that and we would be pet inclusive.
Great, thank you. And I had a question from a constituent. They were asking about, I think it's veterans, but they wanted to be clear, is this for veterans or veterans of foreign wars only, or is this for all of those people who are considered veterans with a DD 214?
Yeah, so veterans of all shapes, colors, and sizes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think that's it for now. My only way in, of course, is noise. It's not around fireworks, so I wouldn't, recommend this place by where we put our fireworks. But I do think that we do need to be really cognizant about noise, any sort of sharp, loud sounds for our veterans. And so I really appreciate this. I like that it's going to be close to rail. And I really do like the idea that with the price range of it, it's going to be amazing. So let me know how we can support you and the funding aspect of that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Twist.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, and Mr. Lebarski for the presentation. I'm pretty excited about this project. I do have a question about, so given the population and the high number that you mentioned of seniors and people with disabilities, can you speak a little bit about the accessibility features that will be, and will they be equal across all the apartments, or will it be, some units will be designed differently?
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Council Member. Again, I'll point to another previous project as a really good starting point. But one thing we've learned over the years is that we can never build, however many units we build that have accessibility features, we haven't built enough. So we wanted, our goal on this project is, and when we talk about accessibility features, we generally talk about sort of units in what's called a type A or a type B and so forth unit. A type A unit would be fully accessible under the Americans for Disabilities Act. We're aiming for this project to achieve 50% type A units, and the other 50% are what we would call type B units. And type B units means it's like almost accessible, but it's adaptable. So that means like if there was a specific resident who came in and needed to be, needed to install some grab bars in the shower or under sink space so that they can roll in if they have a mobility feature, that unit is already sort of the bones of it is already outfitted for that. So adapting that unit to being fully accessible is very easy from both a cost and time perspective.
Okay, thank you. Can you speak a little bit too about,
how you'll decide who gets to live there? Like what kind of preference for the applicants? Will there be preference for Broomfield residents? Will there be preference for disabled veterans?
Yeah, so good question. I would say typically we're going to continue to develop what's called a tenant selection plan and develop a waiting list for who would want to be on the property and literally go down the list. And so we haven't yet developed any special priority for Broomfield residents beyond the fact that it's in our backyard.
Okay, thank you. And I think you answered all of my other questions at the neighborhood meeting. I just want to say that I've been really impressed with Mr. Lebarsky and the team, and it seems like a very thoroughly thought through project, and I'm excited to see the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to follow up on the good questions from Councilmember Twist because I had the same thought process. I do work at Anschutz Medical Center, so I have walked past your facility, the Renaissance, correct? There's also Liberty View, which I think is another for homeless vets of a certain age. And then there's the State Veterans Home, which I think is assisted living. So there's a lot of wraparound services being right there and with the VA not too far away, plus the hospital. I'm just curious in terms of this facility, are you looking into what kind of wraparound services might be needed by these residents looking forward? from the
Yes,
county?
so thank you for that question, Councilmember Cohen. And part of what I tried to get at the presentation is that they'll both be on-site services at the building itself. And by that, I mean, not only sort of case management services, but as CCH as developer and owner operator of our projects, we also provide the property management at the projects. So what that means for us is we're not sort of outsourcing or hiring a third-party property manager who may not have the experience or the trauma-informed understanding about how to manage a property in the same way that we do. So when we develop a property, we think about what staff is at the property, like it's all one big community, and we don't sort of delineate between like a case manager and a property manager. Like everyone at the property can provide services, and often at the veterans property you alluded to in Aurora, like just knowing that our property manager there at that property is actually a veteran herself, and just having that like quick 5-second connection can sometimes turn around an individual's day or week or month. So I'll start there in terms of like on-site services and care that we provide for our residents. And then 2 other points I want to make. So the VFW has been such an amazing partner throughout this whole project. And by locating so close to their post, like it's not technically on-site, but it's basically on-site and provides just like another avenue for connection, community, organization, something to dive into if they chose to participate in the VFW post activities. And sometimes just having that not in their unit or in the common area, but just across the driveway is a really big help. And then 2, I know from our conversations with the VFW, we are trying to figure out a way to collaborate with sort of more transportation and shuttle type of services to access the greater depth of services that may be available at the VA in Aurora. We mentioned that the short distance to the Flatiron Flyer and the Front Range Rail project, which we hope comes to fruition, but sort of to help facilitate all of that transportation, we are trying to figure out ways to collaborate with the VFW and our resources to make those sort of offsite services more accessible.
That sounds great. So pretty much similar to the Renaissance in Aurora, only it's just on a smaller scale.
Correct. And again, if you, I would invite anyone to come tour it. I'm happy to give a tour of the property. It's a very similar size and makeup of what we anticipate this property to look like. So it's a lot of the same features that we would try to incorporate into this one as well.
Thank you. And apologize if I missed it. You don't have an age restriction for this facility, it's not, you're anticipating.
We do not anticipate age restriction, no.
Do you anticipate it's a long-term residence or is it a transitional? Like, could someone be there for a year or two to transition to permanent housing somewhere else if they chose, if that's a goal?
Totally. We would, we would consider this really apartments like any other apartment. If it makes sense for you and your family to live there for a year or two and transition somewhere else, great. If you want to live there for 20 years, awesome. You're happy to be here.
Perfect, thank you. Well, thank you to you and to the VFW to be commended for making their property used for this good purpose. Look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments from my colleagues? Well, I fully support the project. I think it's just, this is the best night ever. And it's just so rare, and we're so grateful. If you think we could support you in any way with a support letter, let us know. We're happy to help with whoever you're, applying for financing with. And we look forward to seeing you come back with the full application.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council members. We appreciate the time today. I also want to thank Ted for all of his hard and diligent work and the planning staff. Kristen and her team at BHA. We have really not run into anyone who hasn't been super helpful through this whole process. And it's just a delight to be involved in Broomfield, and we're happy to be involved. So thank you very much.
I did have one question, but not for you. Is there any other plans for maybe a quiet zone crossing at 116th if this rail project goes through? Would that be a consideration?
I'm gonna get back to you on that, Mayor.
That's okay. I mean, it just popped in my head because I know we installed them in other places. So it's always that. Thank you again. Have
Thank
a
you
good
very
night.
much.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take our 10-minute recess, take a break, and then we'll tackle our final enterprise update item. It's 8:02. We'll be back at 8:12. Thank you. Again, welcome back, everyone. We are on our third and final item tonight, which is an enterprise update for the second quarter of the year. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to begin the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. We were just talking before Mr. Rutt and Mr. Laurie make their way down to the podium that this conversation about having our flow representatives here after having been through a year and a half of much of a significantly deeper dive than we ever have been from an advisory committee, and how grateful we are to the time, effort, and energy. If you've been to one of those flow meetings, they are no joke. It is 2 hours of packed analysis and figures and data and questions and presentations, and we thank you for that. Kicking us off this evening is Mr. Rutt, our Director of Utilities, and Mark Laurie, our Deputy Director. Mr. Rutt, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Ken Rutt, Director of Water Utilities. And again, as always, it's always my pleasure to talk to you all about water, especially this year with the drought. So tonight, next slide, please. Tonight, we're going to really talk a little bit. I'm going to do a piece on a little bit on the infrastructure, what some of our modernization of our operations, some highlights from our capital projects, some updates on our operation and maintenance performance, and then an overview of some of our water quality, activities, and community engagement. Next slide. So we went, you've seen part of this last week when we did the collection master plan, but for those in the audience today and those are online, Broomfield has over 1,075 miles of underground piping network. And that's broken up between our potable water, which has 505 miles, and our wastewater is 335, stormwater is 178, and reuse is another 42 miles. And so if you put that end to end, you're really looking at going from Denver to Chicago is the total amount of piping that we have. Then you can see all the other various components of that underground system, valves, hydrants, our pump stations, and those so forth. Next slide. Some of the modernization and technology that particularly this year that we've added to our operations is the real-time pressure monitoring. We have 82 potable water and 20 reuse PRVs, pressure reducing valves, and that's what we use to regulate our system to ensure that our pressures are maintained throughout the systems and that they don't get too high and blow up the homeowner's internal plumbing, or get too low where we can't provide enough fire flow protection. And that's really kind of the purpose of those PRVs. Well, this year we began to modernize that system to where we have that on real-time monitoring programming. And so we can see what's happening in the system on those pressures, what's coming in and what's coming out of those PRVs, because we try to make sure we monitor within that range. And that gives us real-time data so the team and the staff can go out and address any pressure areas depending on what zone that might be. So that's a really major impact to our modernization. The other one we've had for several years, which is the remote control rovers that we use to inspect our sewer and stormwater lines, where we can get into those and we don't have to send people or anything into those, and be able to view those and see the inside of those pipes. And then that also, we updated the software that goes with it, and it is a software that's developed by the industry to evaluate and rate the condition on inside of the pipes based on what that camera sees. And so we're using that technology to help us rate those pipes. Next slide. And some of our capital investment that's been going on is one of the major ones is the wastewater or water recovery facility, our phase 1 expansion. You can see that some of the concrete forms and some of the boxes that are being built. We have that one going on, and then the Phase 1B, which was just recently approved, is we'll be bringing the contract for the construction back probably early next year, and to move forward with the Phase 1B part of it. The Phase 1 is about a $60.9 million project. And then the Sunridge Lift Station, this one is the one we guaranteed that it would be done within 12 months, and it was. I think it was done in 11. And that we also have included our new turf requirements. So that is the Tahoma 31 turf, which is supposed to use roughly 60 to 70% less water. And so if the community wants to see a real life test of what that sod looks like and how it performs, especially in this 100-degree weather, that would be a great location to take a look at. Next slide. Other capital investments includes our stormwater system. We are in the process of doing some trenchless pipeline rehabilitation, where we're going to reline a little over 6,000 linear feet of storm line throughout the Broomfield Heights development area, and then about 2,400 feet in the Miller-Geertz extension. That's really from Community Ditch down to roughly the cemetery area. So roughly 136 down to about where the cemetery is at. And then our Pond 45 inlet, you can see the pictures on my left is what it looked like prior to the work that was done. And then the pictures on the right are what it looks like today. And so that project has wrapped up and is finished. And now, as we wait for a little bit of rain so the landscaping can grow, that project is wrapping up and it looks really nice. Next slide. Our water meter projects, this is some of our operations and performance work that we're doing. We're currently about 60% finished with the water meters. We've completed a little over 1,200 of the 2,000 plus meters that we're scheduled to install. We're installing roughly about 80 meters a week. And then the water line replacement project, we finished the Westlake pieces of that project, and which included finishing up the tie-in in Lowell Boulevard and 136th. We were able to complete that. The teams worked, the contractor worked 12-hour continuous shifts so that we would not have any residential outages. And that was very successful. And then the last one here is the north area water tanks. And basically, so far, we've done about over 105,000 cubic yards of earth movement, and 160 concrete piers were drilled. In those tanks, they're about 30 to 45 feet deep each, and that is established into bedrock for a solid foundation to ensure those tanks do not move. Next slide. Other operations is, I do want to point out, this is our team. This is a picture of our team actually doing the work in the field. So we have the daily work that keeps our system running. We've completed 100% of the water line and hydrant flushing program for 2026. That's flushing 505 miles of that distribution system. And that is necessary to help safeguard our water quality. And then we've also flushed all the hydrants to ensure all of those are working, to ensure our fire infrastructure is properly operating. We've done to date a little over 70% of our stormwater collection system inspections. And we're about a little over 44% now of the sewer cleaning. So just a little under 400,000 linear feet of the sewer line has been cleaned. We clean the entire system twice a year. So 50% one year and the other 50% the other year. So over a 2-year period, 100% of our system is cleaned. And that ensures that we prevent any blockages, ensures that as trees, roots continue to monitor wherever there is water, which happens sometimes into sewer lines. We also take care of the tree roots that could cause block-ups. And then we also ensure that there's no grease backups, so the lines stay free. Next slide. Another slide, basically just repeating some of the stuff there. We also have a fire hydrant maintenance program where we inspect each. So the first one is we made sure they're all operating, and then we go back and then we inspect each one of them and make sure that they're operating properly. We lubricate them and we test them. And so we're about 51% complete with that program. 73% on the stormwater cleaning program, and we're on schedule with the sewer line rehabs. Next slide. In protecting our water quality, one of the biggest and most important things that a lot of times gets goes under the radar is our cross connection and backflow program. Basically what that prevents is if there's any cross connection between like reuse or sewer or something, sometimes contractors or various vendors, sometimes those lines can get accidentally tied into each other. And so what the backflow does is it prevents anything from backflowing into the potable water side. So it protects our systems from contamination. And we have achieved 99.28% of the requirements for this year already in July. The state requirement is to require 90% inspections and verifications every year. So we've already well exceeded the state requirement. The other thing is our water quality testing is to date. Our water quality from our source in Colorado Big Thompson Water has shown no PFAS. And so therefore we are very happy with that part. So good news. Next slide. Also our laboratory, our water laboratory, environmental lab is what it is termed, also was able to achieve our renewal. Every year the state health department comes out and inspects our laboratories, and to ensure that we are following all the appropriate standard methods of laboratory operations and analysis, and that all of our equipment is well maintained and operational, and we were successful. We were reissued our certification effective July 1st. And so we're pleased with the work that our laboratories are doing. And then also just a reminder for everybody that the 2025 Annual Drinking Water Quality Report is now available on our website, and that's the web address at the bottom of this slide. That's available for anyone to go online and take a look. We're pleased to report that there was no violations from City and County of Broomfield operations. Next slide. Part of our outreach program and empowering the community in our environmental stewardship is we had the Public Works Water Utility Academy that was held in May, and we had over 60 community members engaged and with staff to learn about Broomfield operations. We had various interactive demonstrations and some facility tours. I have a video link if council would like to see that video link. It's about a 3-minute long link. We can show it if you want. Otherwise, I'll skip it. It's your pleasure. Want to
Perhaps
see
we
it?
could, yeah,
Okay. And you
Or we
click, hopefully that link works.
send an email later with, and you could watch at your leisure.
Okay, we'll link it to them and send it to you. We have what happened on that video. We had our master of videos, Jesse, come out and film the event, and he interviewed several folks from the public, and they provided some comments as well as some staff. So it's very well done. The other thing we did was we had a pilot program that we did with Boulder County School District, where we had a teacher from the district come and immerse into the Water Utilities Division. And so they spent about several days with each throughout the utility division and got a full view, full picture of what's all involved in the water utility operations. So the next part is we're looking at going to the next steps, which is providing a mentorship program to high school students who are interested in possible careers in water utility operations. And so we are working with the school district to talk through what that looks like, what are the requirements, How much time are they looking at? And those type of things. So look for more on how we further can work through that, because it's one of the biggest things in the water utility industry, not just in Colorado, but throughout the nation, is there's a ongoing huge retirement of folks that have been in the business 30, 40 years. Nationwide, American Public Works Association, the American Water Works Association and Water Environment Federation, all are indicating nationwide we're about 30% shortage of workers in the field. And so this is one of our ways of trying to reach out and get interest in the field, not only just for the city and county of Broomfield, but for the industry itself. Yeah, all that. Exactly. So we're excited about that, and we'll keep moving that forward, and you'll hear more about that as it progresses. Next slide. So basically all of this is how are we optimizing our resources? Because that's really one of our focus points and key points is optimizing our operations, ensuring that we are providing the best services, water quality, and ensuring that we are stewards of the funding that we're provided. And so we are always looking and investing and trying to optimize in various ways to help us improve our operations and to minimize cost increases as much as possible. Next slide. Then I want to talk briefly a little bit about the drought update. From our potable water side, the drinking water side, we are recommending that we stay in the drought watch. We are roughly right on the 5-year average mark, a few percentages over. And our water supply continues to look firm throughout the rest of the year. So we are still on the potable water side, continue to stay in drought watch, and we will continue to communicate out to our community. Next slide. Reuse. Now, reuse, on the other hand, when we wrote the memo, at the time we wrote the memo and the data we had, we were just right about average or slightly above. Since then, we've had this tremendous heat wave, and we are now at max year. And so we did send out letters to all of our reuse customers last week and received confirmation from a majority of them that they would participate in reducing their usage by 20%. And so the goal for that was to prevent or help us to make it through the season without having to declare a drought one declaration or bring it to council to have you guys consider a drought one declaration. And so in mid-August, we will know what that gives us about 4 weeks of data, and we'll see if we've achieved that 20%. And if not, we will be back in August. I think it's the last meeting in August with a recommendation for reuse only. Next slide. Our water conservation update. We have sold out all of our Garden in the Box. We were able to fund 140 by Broomfield, and then another 42 was grant funded. Lawn replacement, we completed 53. 24 of those are still in progress, and that is also sold out. And then our fire sprinkler evaluations, 83 were completed. 23 more are scheduled in 7 HOAs. And the WaterWise yard seminars, we've had 353 residents register for those. So, and then we've also had 2 HOAs, Outlook and Stone Creek at the Broadlands, have completed their assessments. And then the HOA turf projects, there was 2 HOAs have selected, which is Summer Bay Townhomes and the Vantage Points for some turf replacement. And then our Broomfield water rebates, we've had 16 rain barrels and then 82 controllers and 131 nozzles. And so we also had 5 home monitoring systems given away to residents. So we made, I think, well use of the funding that we had available for our water conservation, and most of them are all sold out. And if you drove by Holy Family today, you probably saw them. They are getting their audit was started today. So Holy Family was getting their audit. Next slide. And this is where I'll hand it off to our Deputy Director, Mark Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Rett.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. I'm going to give you a brief update on Great Western Reservoir this evening. We've retooled a little bit, so we were hoping to be able to bring you a recommendation on Great Western Reservoir this fall. We've decided we need to do a little more analysis, so we're probably going to bring you that recommendation in the winter. Take a few more months to leave, kind of make sure we're exploring every avenue, every option, and kind of leaving no stone unturned. But it's a very complicated problem, and so we thought it'd be good to give you a brief review tonight. We're going to come back in September with a more detailed review, and then we'll be ready to bring you a recommendation in the winter. So tonight I'm going to talk about background, the existing issues at the reservoir, and alternatives. I'm not going to talk about the sampling and risk assessment. I'm not really going to talk about the modeling we're doing. We'll do that in September, and I'll briefly cover next steps. Next slide, please. So before I go into any of the details, I thought it'd be good to start here, both for members of council that might be concerned about this, as well as members of the community. The dam is safe. There are structural issues with the outlet pipe and with the tow drain. I'll get into those a little bit that foretell potential issues down the road. So the state doesn't wait until the dam is at risk to make you do something. They're looking at whether structural systems are performing the way they're supposed to, and they want you to do things proactively before they become an issue. So the dam is inspected every year by the state engineer's office and by our consulting engineers. In 2019, the state first rated the dam's condition as what they call conditionally satisfactory. So that's kind of their way of saying there are enough issues that are evolving at this dam that you're going to need to address them in due time. And it's different for each dam. It's different for each issue. In addition to those annual inspections, critical functions at the dam are monitored literally on a daily basis. So we have staff on site during irrigation season every single day who get eyes on the dam and eyes on some of the critical functions that monitor how the dam is working. In the non-irrigation season, when we're using a little less, it's still almost every single day. Sometimes there's nobody there on weekends. That includes monitoring water levels of the seepage through the dam, which is related to the tow drains, monitoring the outflows from the tow drains, monitoring the water quality of the outflow from the tow drains, surveying monitoring points on the dam to see how the dam is shifting. Believe it or not, dams actually move. We do all of those things on a very regular basis. So all of those inspections and ongoing monitoring show no signs of any immediate risk with the dam itself. And so the state engineer actually lets us continue to use full storage. What they are requiring is because there are these issues that are going to degrade function of the dam later, they require us to make progress on those structural problems, or eventually they will probably give us an unsatisfactory rating and no longer allow us to use the dam. So I wanted to cover that before we dive in a little bit more. Next slide, please. So why is Great Western Reservoir so important for us? Our wastewater facility generates reusable effluent year-round, but the amount of effluent available from the wastewater plant that's actually legally reusable under our water rights is not enough to meet summer demands. So if we were just using what was available to us at the wastewater plant in the summer, we would maybe be able to meet about half of the system's demand. So what we do is that effluent's also being generated in the winter. In the winter, we can pump it up to Great Western Reservoir. And then in the summer, when those demands are at their highest, we can use the reservoir together with the pumping from the wastewater facility to meet all of those demands. In general, Great Western Reservoir meets about 70% of the overall water use on the reuse system. It varies a little bit from year to year, but it's really the critical piece of infrastructure for that system to meet all of that use. So having issues with that dam and potentially considering not having that reservoir, very critical for the reuse system. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the issues with the dam itself? I'll start with the outlet pipe. That's the one that's depicted here in kind of the blue with the muddy splotches on it. So there's a couple things going on with the main outlet pipe. This is literally the pipe that's used to deliver water out to the reuse system. Segments of the pipe are starting to pull apart so that we can see in our video inspection. So similar to what we do with our buried pipe infrastructure, we can send a camera up into that pipe and look at what's going on. Pipe segments are pulling apart, and there are these internal seals that we installed in the late 90s and early 2000s to help seal those joints. Those seals are starting to bulge. So that pipe is on the verge of failure. It's, those are warning signs that this pipe is not going to be functional for the long term. So that's one set of issues. The tow drain is the pipes here depicted by orange. So the tow drain is a natural feature in any earthen dam. The idea is there's always going to be seepage through a dam. So the tow drain is, in an earthen dam, it's a layer of gravels and sands that allows that seepage to collect in a particular layer of the dam, directs it to pipes. The pipes take it out of the dam safely so it doesn't cause any erosion in the dam. We've got a few issues going on with the tow drain system. One, we've got at least one spot on one of those pipes where the pipe has ruptured or collapsed and there's gravel and rock blocking the pipe. I'll show a picture of that here in a moment. In addition, those pipes come out into a large manhole on the dam, and the outflows from those manholes or from those pipes into that manhole are mineralized. There's just a lot of carbonate or other mineralized that are blocking a lot of the flow coming out of those pipes. So basically the tow drain system isn't getting flow, getting that seepage out of the dam as efficiently as it used to. And we do see slightly elevated water levels, essentially kind of like groundwater type of situation within the dam embankment itself, which is a sign that the tow drain is not working as efficiently as it should. The other issue, which is of less concern to the state, but is something we're considering, is I didn't go through a detailed history of this dam, but it's 120 years old, and it was expanded in the 1950s. When they expanded it, they actually had a slope failure on the dam. So they had essentially a small landslide on the dam. We've heard from our engineers that it is in the dam engineering textbook as a textbook example of slope failure on a dam. So we're famous. So that they didn't repair that in the 1950s. They just rebuilt the dam back up to its height of 70 feet. In 2000, I don't remember the year, 2002 or 3, Broomfield did put what they call a tow berm. So they basically added a bunch of soil and material to the bottom of the dam to try to stabilize that part of the slope. We haven't seen any movement. We haven't seen any signs, but it's a concern that that weak layer, as our engineers call it, is still there and it's still present in the dam. So it's another concern that we at least want to consider addressing down the road. Next slide, please. So a couple of photos, several of which look kind of horrific. Picture one, that's actually what goes on when we do the dam inspection. So I think that's actually the state engineer, from the state engineer's office, Jim Kirch, going down at that manhole. That manhole is about 55 feet deep, I think. And it's got water seeping in everywhere. So it's quite a process to get down in there. Pictures 2 and 3 are of that mineralized buildup on those outlet pipes into that manhole. So you can see all that junk that's kind of built up in there. They've actually tried to just test it various ways to see if they can clear that out, and they can. It's basically rock, like, mineral accretion. And then photo 4 is where I said that one of the pipes further up in the dam that is supposed to deliver some of that tow drain water down into that lower pipe and get it out of the dam. That's where the pipe has collapsed, and we've got rock in the pipe blocking the flow within that pipe. So those are some of the issues. I also have photos of the outlet pipe. They're more like reading an X-ray. They're very blurry and you can't really tell what's going on. Our engineers can figure out what's going on, but I didn't share those here. Next slide, please. So in 2024, council approved an agreement with Schnabel Engineers. They've been our engineers on this dam for 25 years, for them to conduct an engineering assessment of all these issues and of the dam and come up with conceptual alternatives to address these issues. When they initially began the work, Stanley Lake down in Westminster had somewhat similar issues. I don't remember how long ago it was, but they were able to selectively replace some of these systems. So literally just excavate into the dam and replace pieces of them. They had unique situations there that we don't necessarily have at Great Western. But when we first started, they thought that selective repair would probably be our best option. So that was the one we started with. As we began to see that the costs were going to be close to replacing the dam and there were going to be other issues with that selective repair, we asked them to also look at fully replacing the dam and decommissioning the dam as potential alternatives. So all 3 of those are shown here. The selective repair, In this situation, they'd micro tunnel into the dam, build new outlet pipe into the abutments, and they'd excavate into the dam to replace all that tow drain system. Obviously has a lower capital cost than replacing the whole dam. The reservoir would be partially usable during construction, probably less than half, but we would at least have some storage and be able to support the reuse system a little bit. One of the cons with this is it does leave that slope failure plane that I talked about at the base of the dam in place. We wouldn't rebuild that. So one of my concerns with this is if we went with this option for the cost efficiency, I'm afraid somebody be standing here in 15 or 20 or some number of years saying, now we have an issue with that slide plane and we need to address that. So that's one of the concerns I have for that with that alternative. Full dam replacement is substantially the most expensive alternative we're looking at in terms of its direct costs. This is completely excavating that dam away from right abutment to left abutment down to bedrock and building an entire new dam to modern standards with all new infrastructure. The cost for that is $48 million. It would resolve all issues, including that 1958 slide plane that I've mentioned. We would expect this to have a 50-year plus lifespan where we would need any rehabilitation, just normal maintenance. And it would increase the capacity very slightly. Obviously, it's the most expensive of these in terms of direct costs, and the reservoir under this alternative would be completely offline for 2 years, which is a problem that we need to address and think about. Decommissioning the dam is the cheapest direct cost, but it has substantial indirect costs, which is one of the things we're evaluating, and I'm just going to touch on that briefly. This is literally, we would just cut a hole in the dam so that it could never store water again. As I mentioned, Great Western Reservoir delivers about 70% of reuse demand, so we would basically be getting rid of the project that delivers about 70% of the water use on the system. Next slide, please. So if we do decommission Great Western Reservoir, we'd have to come up with another way to deliver water to all those reuse customers. So we've come up with a number of different conceptual projects that we could pursue to do that. And we're trying to look at both the technical feasibility under our water rights, under the other characteristics of our system. Would those other projects actually make up for the lost capacity, and what would the pros and cons of that be? And then obviously what would the cost be? We're partnering with Carollo Engineers and Di Natale Water Consultants, two really good firms on these issues to help us study these. They developed a model for us. I'll go into that in September, but we're going to get some results tomorrow and then probably get our final results in early August. The options that we're looking at, you've heard about Height Pit. This is a gravel pit down on the South Platte River that Broomfield already owns and owns water rights for. It always sounds weird to people, like, why do we have a project down on the South Platte River? How would we use that? We would essentially use it as a replacement source. We'd reuse more water here, and we'd have to replace the return flows that would have gone to the river otherwise. This project completely enables that and would give us about 1,000 acre-feet of capacity, give or take, to do that. We could supplement the reuse with potable water. There are ways to connect the two systems and just deliver potable water, either converting some of the customers to potable water or connecting the two systems and feeding potable water into the reuse system. Treated water, our treated potable water is much more expensive than reused water. It's about 3 times as expensive, about a $4 difference per 1,000 gallons. So there would be a big cost implication there. And then that would also move up the time when we would need the water treatment plant expansion and Broomfield Reservoir. So we're evaluating what that looks like and when that timing would have to move up if we decided to do that. Other possibility is to supplement the reuse system with raw water so we could modify Sienna Reservoir. We just put in that pump station so that we could connect Sienna Reservoir to the water treatment plant. We could repurpose that pump station and connect it to the reuse system and pump raw water, untreated water. We have a number of different water rights we could put in Sienna Reservoir straight into the reuse system. That would not affect the timing of the water treatment plant, but it would affect the timing of Broomfield Reservoir because it would take away some of that storage at Sienna that we use for that. It also has some distribution system challenges that I'm not sure we can get over. That would only service the north end of the system and would not be able to get water to the southern end of the system. I think there's a few other challenges, but again, we have another firm that does our reuse distribution system modeling, looking at some of those challenges and whether those are surmountable. Next slide, please. Okay, just quickly on next steps. So I mentioned I actually have a call with our consultants tomorrow to look at their first full package of modeling results on looking at what those alternatives are if we decommission Great Western Reservoir, and then we should get our final results from them in August. We do have a session scheduled with you on September 15th during a study session to dive into this in a little more detail so that you're ready to interpret and make decisions about our recommendations in the winter. In the winter, what we're hoping to bring you is a Great Western Reservoir construction alternative. So either it's that partial replacement, full replacement, or decommission. If it's decommission, then it would include other alternatives to make up for that lost capacity as well. So it would be a package of construction alternatives that we think would solve the problem and a full cost estimate. We're talking with our partners in finance about what a financial strategy looks like for this. It's quite challenging. So hopefully we would have a financial strategy when we bring forward that recommendation in the winter. After that, we already have Schnabel under contract, so they'll proceed on design for the Great Western Reservoir alternative. And then, you know, some of the details in terms of when things happen, we're not exactly don't have nailed down because it's going to depend on the alternative. We're thinking 2029 to 2031 for construction. And so we would bring to you in the fall of 28, so 2 years from now, CIPs in the budget that you review in the fall of 28 to fund these projects and have them ready to go in 29. Okay, I think that's everything I have.
And just as an FYI, council, everything that you just heard will be repeated, reiterated, explained with analysis when we come back in September. So that was a 40,000-foot precursory, but we're not anticipating or expecting you all to retain any of that information. Then a lot more information to come on Great Western. Mr. Rupp.
Steve, we'll have the next person up is our chair of our flow committee. He's going to do a short presentation. And to echo Manager Hoffman, this flow committee is they are highly qualified, and they do ask us a zillion questions. So they are definitely serving the community well. So.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members and staff. I am Steve Perotti, Ward 3, Aspen Creek, and chairman of the flow committee. Tonight, you know, we have our members present. This is our anniversary of our first full year on the committee. And I'd like them to stand as I read off their names and credentials. We have Art Dumble, who was here earlier, but he had to leave. He has a PhD in civil engineering. His specialty is on water treatment facilities. We have Jeffrey Fredericks, PhD in civil engineering. His specialty is on water resources. Kevin Wegner is not here, but he has a master's in civil engineering, and he was from Aurora Water. Chris Kay, BS in civil engineering. He has a lot of credentials behind that. His specialty is pipes and infrastructure. He does goes through consortiums and presents papers on the subject. Gary Alpick. Yes. He has a BS in civil engineering. He has an MBA, and he was a city manager in Lafayette. So he has that government expertise. Sam Taylor. Yes, he has BA in history, and he came very in handy when we were doing our research on past water rate increases. It goes back, there were several years where there's no increase at all, which caused the FUPAL about 2 years ago, where we had to increase rates about 50%, then 15, and now 7. So that hopefully is all behind us. Jane Clary has a BS in economics and an MS in environmental science. Her specialty is water quality. She is our advisor to the committee. And then I'm Steve, and I have a BS in geophysics and a BS in software engineering. A lot of aerospace experience where I planned proposals, work proposals for like $300 million a year for multi-years. So a lot of planning, scheduling, budgeting involved with that. So, yes, we do ask a lot of questions. And I'm sure that Ken and Clark and Mark will be waiting for the next year of questions as we go through the Inquisition. You know, lots of questions. For every council gets the Cliff Notes, basically. We get the full 50, 60 slide presentation, which we follow with another hour of questions. Very detailed, very technical. The committee's focus for the past year has been on the department's financial stability and then to identify any gaps that there might occur. And I'm happy to state that the water utilities department is financially stable with the rate increases that we have. We had the large rate increase to bring up the cash reserves so we can get bonding. And once the bonding is occurred, then we will be able to start the maintenance, the backlog of the maintenance projects. And those were more expensive than, what the revenues were. So as time goes on with the 7% that we have, the backlog in the maintenance will decrease and the revenues will increase. And eventually, I think in 2028 now, it'll be a balance. And then after that, revenues will increase and it'll allow us to fund other capital projects and also for any additional bonding. So we're very stable as far as finances. And part of that is because of the long-range planning and scheduling of the CIP project. So Ken is responsible for that. And then we have real-time adjustments to the financial modeling tool that Graham has produced. And that has made us very stable, and we can anticipate issues for like drought, the Big Thompson water, the drought in Colorado River, water conservation measures, and you name it, it's all in there. And then for each factor, there's gradations, like is it a small impact or large impact? So you can calibrate it that way as well. And it's very accurate. And then also the tight control over their budgets. And again, that's kudos to Ken. He manages his budget to, I think, what's 200,000 this last year. Yeah, that's less than 0.5%. Okay, it's very tight. And in aerospace, a large program, if you can get 2% within 2% of your budget, I mean, you're walking on water, you're golden. So kudos to Ken. We have some recommendations coming up, and that's one is the water rate, 7%. That's in line with the 5-year plan. The second one is 4% increase for the water tap fees. That's again in line with the with the 5-year plan. It also accounts for the fact that construction materials are 5% more expensive. The rates go up faster with construction materials than the cost of living. So that's why the 4%. And then also the third one is to have a 4-tier rate structure for commercial water consumption. This is kind of a gap that was missed before. Currently, it's $3.7 per 1,000 cubic feet. Okay, that is really cheap, and we're giving the water away. Okay, and that invites the opportunity for consumers to come in, businesses to come in who are high consumers of water, factories and data centers, and they can easily consume all of our available water, future water that we have planned for community developments such as Baseline. So going into the future, we should be able to expand the sewage system, the water tank storage, and the water treatment plants. And that'll be about a 50% increase. And that'll bring us out to the full development of Broomfield. Some of the concerns is the drought. The Colorado River is drying up. Flaming Gorge is empty. Lake Powell is near Deadpool, and also Lake Mead. And that consumption is still continuing to go. They consume more water than the Colorado River can produce. So that's a concern about what the federal government might come in at the end of the year and say everybody gets a 30% haircut. So that's a concern. Again, currently the low rates for water for commercial, that's an open door for high use businesses to come in because Broomfield has the space to develop and also the water at really cheap rates. It's at 20% of what surrounding communities charge for their water. Even on tier 3, if you read the packets, tier 3, the highest, tier 4, the highest rate is still 47% of what the surrounding communities will charge. So that's a concern. So anyways, with that, in order to maintain the reduction of the maintenance backlog and also to stabilize the future funding and to encourage water conservation, the Flow Committee unanimously supports these three initiatives, recommendations from the Water Utilities Department. So.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Are you going to give us recommendations for the Great Western Reservoir?
I would.
Later.
I didn't think it was bad as that, but I'm sure that Mark is going to get a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'm a geophysicist and I know some of the issues that are involved. You have water, hydrolifting of the water. If the drainage is plugged, the water will still move through the dam. And if you're familiar with the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco, if there's an earthquake, liquefaction will happen. And basically the dam will just turn to mud and wash away. That's a risk. Also, I'm familiar with Chimney Hollow.
Uh-huh.
And the radiation there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'll keep the good news coming.
well, there's Great Western, Chimney Hollow. They can't fill it because of the drought. There's the water treatment plant.
Wish
and
it was funny.
the tanks.
It's not.
Yeah. They're on schedule and on budget. That's good.
Yeah, okay.
And then
There's
we have
a positive sandwich.
reservoir. And a lot of things coming up in the next couple of years.
We really appreciate all of you so much and look forward to continuing updates and recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Parati and Flow Committee.
And Mayor, before Mr. Graham comes and provides the financial, continues not to be lost on us how difficult that decision was for council to enter into this 5-year plan. And particularly in light of having a compound. It's the first time that really we had conversations on council about what compounding issues and dollars look like. Oftentimes it's lost on the average person. But that yes vote in order to pass those water rates was really a fundamental decision for Broomfield to put us on a course, not only the reason that we're here today, but the reason that we're going to be able to provide for the next 20 years. So those decisions are phenomenally impactful, and you know that you would not have these decisions. You have to have the rates in order to have the projects. Can't have the projects without increasing those rates. So this is a pivotal year for us. It's year 3 of year 5 in order to solidify what these plans are as we continue to increase. With that, Mr. Clark, I was going to say Mr. Graham, as if we're in grade school. Mr. Graham is going to introduce us for that fund update. Council will continue to have these conversations as we move into the budget approval process through September with the final approval in October. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, City Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. We can go to the next slide. So tonight we'll cover 6 main topics. I thought Steve did a great job, and we'll cover these today, and then we'll go into questions. So first, we'll do a review of our financial strategy for the enterprise fund over the last 3 years that Jen just referenced. Next, we'll take a brief look at the overall water system consumption over the last couple of years, and especially during this drought. Then we'll look at development fees and revenues and the 5-year outlook for each fund. And we'll finish by reviewing the 2027 rate recommendations along with next steps. Next slide. So over the past 3 years, CCOB has shifted the enterprise revenue model from a heavy reliance on growth and development to a balanced funding model that is less dependent on growth. This transition enhances Broomfield's ability to proactively identify and address the critical infrastructure needs that Ken talked about earlier. Financial steps taken over the last several years to shift to a more balanced model include implementation of tiered residential rates in 2023, conducting the comprehensive utilities infrastructure assessment with AECOM a couple years ago, creation of the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, the increased transparency through workshops and designated web pages and these quarterly update meetings, and the stabilization of revenue for water and sewer bonds that we did back in January. And lastly, the creation of the Flow Committee for greater transparency, which you just heard from. So we know that there's been some tough decisions that were made over the last few years, which have strengthened the enterprise fund and puts Broomfield and its residents in a better position given the long-term reliability of the enterprise funds. Next slide. So the biggest unknown variable each year is the water consumption, which comes from precipitation in our area over the summer months. This has a large effect on the water revenues each year, and total water consumption across all customers and customer classes for the first 6 months of the year have been up 6.2% to 2025 and nearly 5% higher than the historic 5-year average. This will help as we assess rates early next year. The second largest unknown after precipitation levels are the development fees, or bringing new customers into the system. Next slide. So Broomfield collects license fees or tap fees from developers for water and tap fees each year. Water license fee revenue for 2025 came in right at budget at about 12.8 million. And this continued a second strong license fee year in revenue just after the 15 million that we got in 2024. Sewer license fee revenue was similar. It was strong at 10 million in 2025 and a small decrease from 11.3 million in 2024. That being said, we are projecting a rather large decrease in water and sewer license fee revenue in 2026 and 2027 compared to that of 2024 and 2025. Due to the continued economic uncertainty, mostly around interest rates. Planning projects 2026 water license revenue at about $8 million and sewer license fee revenue at about $4 million. And while 2027 is higher, we are not expecting a return to more normal amounts until 2028. This further highlights the importance of the adjustments that we've made over the last couple of years to focus on balanced revenue between growth revenue and base fees. Next slide. So revenue results are based on a previously communicated 5-year plan. So you'll see that in 28, 29, we've got some numbers which are 7% in 2028, 29, and 7% this year as well. These projections include the updated 5-year CIP for 2027 and updated operating expenses from Ken and his team, along with debt service costs with the new bond. So starting with this water fund, the 5-year projection for water shows positive in all years, and the revenue from charges for services remains steady with moderate growth over the next couple of years. The debt payments will remain at about 13.7 million per year for this foreseeable future. In the 2021 water bond was for 25 years, and the 2026 one that we just did is for 20 years. As you can see, the fund balance projections at the bottom, we do show increasing to $14.6 million by 2030. Next slide. For the sewer fund, the balances are substantially higher than the targeted 180 days cash on hand. However, this is necessary due to the upcoming large phases, phase 2 through 5 of the wastewater treatment facility expansion. Those are projected to total about $500 million. So the higher fund balance will help reduce the amount that is needed to bond in those future years. Next slide. So turning to the reuse fund, which Mark just talked about a little bit, we're evaluating several larger projects that need to be incorporated into the CIP. We will continue to monitor the fund in coordination with this flow group. for the next couple of months as we lead into September. The CIP and the financial projections will be reevaluated at the end of 2026. One option for consideration is whether the fund is small enough to eventually be consolidated into the larger water fund to support the long-term sustainability of the reuse system. Next slide. Finally, the stormwater fund, the projections show the balance decreasing in 2030, but then going up after that. Finance and Flow recommends a 7% increase in 2027, similar to the other funds, but we will be closely evaluating this next year, and it may be required a more than a 7% increase next year for the stormwater fund. We'll continue to monitor that, as I said. Next slide. One of the main things that came out this year is commercial tiers. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that in more detail. Broomfield currently has a single rate structure for commercial tiers. We charge $3.71 per 1,000 gallons. And that's just a flat amount, no matter how much you use. Much different from the single-family homes, which we changed back in 2023. So staff is recommending switching to a tiered structure for commercial water users. Most municipalities on the Front Range are already operating like this. More importantly, moving to a tiered commercial rate will ensure financial sustainability and incentivize a lot of the businesses to conserve more water. It will also create a more equitable rate structure for businesses and homeowners. Key considerations in creating the tiers for the commercial customers included the following. We looked at designing the rates based on analysis of past consumption of this commercial sector. We looked at minimizing the impact of routine indoor water use, along with setting the highest rate for summer peak users. As you can see from the final bullet, commercial and industrial users account for 15% of the total water usage in 2025 and only 10% of the revenue. The new commercial tiers and rates would bring that revenue contributed up to 12%. Using the above considerations, we're proposing the 4 tiers shown on the table on the right. To note, less than 1% of the current commercial users would get into that tier 4. We only have 3 accounts, or 3 customers, 5 accounts that would potentially hit tier 4. So that's kind of like a little bit of a super user group in tier 4. Next slide. So as we've talked about earlier today, this slide shows the 5-year rate plan. We're in year 3. This was first communicated in 2024, and we are recommending the 7% increase in 2027 for all enterprise funds, which aligns with that original 5-year rate plan. This slide shows the dollar impact of a resident's bill on the base fee, and the bottom row shows a recommendation of 4% to cover the inflationary measures for the sewer and water tap fees. Next slide. So this one's always interesting each year. We bring this out. This is newly updated with brand new information from a lot of other municipalities along the Front Range. This slide compares the average monthly bill for a resident for various municipalities along the Front Range. For comparison purposes, the average month is based on 9,000 gallons for a single-family home for a month. Many single-family homes would see that 9,000 in both the spring and the fall, most likely. So the bottom or the darker section of each column represents the average bill in 2026, and at the top of each column, shaded in the light blue, reflects the estimated increases for 2027 based on the data that we've gotten from the other municipalities along and adjacent to us. As you can see, we're in the lower tier of the cluster of about 4 or 5 municipalities there towards the bottom that have similar rates. Next slide. This slide shows the estimated impact to residents. This is a single-family home. Like I said, it's based on 9,000 gallons of water and 6,000 for AWC, which is how we calculate the sewer, which comes to about $9.31 for the average single-family home. Next slide. So as Steve mentioned, over the last year, we've met regularly with the Flow Committee, which occur once a month. And we've gotten a lot of finance-related questions through our presentation of the rate model and a lot of the other information that we've talked about in terms of commercial tiers and the rate increase. As Steve mentioned, the Flow Committee has endorsed our recommended rates, including the tap fee increase there at the bottom. Next slide. The Flow Committee also provided some future-focused feedback for staff consideration. These include Chimney Hollow Reservoir and preparation for MS4 discharge, and we will continue to look at these recommendations throughout the year, and we will update council in each of these quarterly update meetings. Next slide. So in conclusion, we're recommending to continue with the 5-year plan of 7% increase in 2027, as well as implementation of the commercial tiers. Thanks to the decisions that have been made over the last couple of years, the enterprise funds are strengthening. And the next time we will talk about rates will be part of the economic and fiscal update next month, along with the budget process beginning in September. With that, we can answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark, and team. We'll go to council questions. Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for all these presentations tonight. I feel like I also have a bachelor's in something by now, whether it be water flow or piping or finances. And so it's interesting how all of your gifts are really coming to fruition. It's pretty cool. I remember reading your resumes and going, holy cow, these are the smartest people in the room. You put them together and it's like a lot of synergy. So, and I know Sam, you historically have really always elevated water, and I feel like that's an important thing in any city. And I know that you've led that throughout the years. So thank you all for the presentation. I don't want to thank the Academy for too long here, but what I wanted to know, just and understand, just with the proportion of the 7% increase, how much of is it going to go to, have we sort of parsed it out within that 7%? How much is going, you mentioned, I think, inflation, debt service. Is it going towards anything like building reserves in the future? Have we parsed it out within that 7% or?
Well, to answer your question, we get the revenues that all come in, and we do have it all parsed out. A lot of it goes to capital, of course. Some of the development piece pays for that also. A lot of it's going to the bonding. So the new amounts that have come through, a lot of it's going to the bonding. We don't have it specifically kind of set out by percentage or anything like that, but we certainly have line items that each of them go to.
Okay. And is any of it going towards reserves, or is that a part of the conversation?
No, we're good on reserves right now. This kind of the outlook here is after reserves, and so we feel comfortable with the reserve amounts.
Okay. And I hate to ask this question, but if council approves something less than 7%, what projects or targets would we not hit? What would happen if we don't pass this?
I'll let Ken answer that one.
Basically, if the 7% is not approved and a different number is approved, it would impact mostly our capital projects. So like our water line replacements, our stormwater projects or sewer projects. That would be the main pieces. Some of the modernization may have to be held off because we wouldn't have funding to do those. The major projects such as the wastewater facility and the water tanks, we would make sure they were fully allocated so that we could finish those projects. So it would impact the rest of the CIP budget.
Okay, thank you. How much of the proposed rate increase then intertwines or assumes anything with the Great Western Reservoir, or are those two separate conversations?
That is yet to be determined.
Okay.
Since we don't have the exact, all the modeling and the studies done yet to make a recommendation, so we're not sure what that cost actually would be. And so that has not been figured into the current CIP requests.
Okay. And then one last question. I know we mentioned commercial. Which industries are we going to see that's going to have the experience the greatest increase, do we think? Or which industries are we thinking that it's going to affect the most in commercial?
Mr. Rupp, part of that conversation, it's less about the industries that will be impacted and more about the water usage. So for example, the industries, one of our largest users is Omni.
Okay.
So we don't look at it specific to businesses. We just look at from the top users right now, and golf courses are
Just going to ask that.
huge users.
I even think golf courses use more than specific data centers that have closed loop systems. So the golf courses would be, I would think, affected, but I don't know how much that is commercial on certain golf courses versus others. So I didn't know what your input was on that one.
Mark's got the data.
So it's a good question, Councilmember Hengel. So golf courses typically are, I think they're all on reuse. They're all on reuse. So they're actually not going to be affected by this commercial tiering proposal. So we have looked at how it would break out among some of our customers. We don't like to publicize that information because it's, private information, but it's going to be things like data centers. There are some car washes up near the top, large commercial properties. Those are most of the biggest ones, and a couple of our manufacturers fall on the top list. And it tends to be there. So we've done a lot of analysis, as Graham mentioned, about which customers, but not just which customers, which months of their use. And in a lot of cases, it's their summer use for irrigating some of their campus grounds and that kind of thing. So it's really a small percentage of their months that would fall into that top tier.
Okay. And their irrigation is not reuse, or no?
In most cases, those aren't. No, there are some. I think the only one I can think of is the JP Morgan Chase data center up north on 100 and whatever it is. Their grounds are on reuse. I think that's the only corporate entity that I can think of that's on reuse, but there might be other ones.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Thank you. That's it for now.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lim.
Thank you. I was interested in the discussion on the commercial rates. So the you went over the fact that the prior to this recommended increase, that the user and commercial users only accounted for 10% of the revenue, even though they used 15% of the total water. And then these new rates will bring the revenue contributed up to 12%. So what was the discussion? Why not bring it up to the 15% that they actually use? Was there discussion about that?
There was a relatively short discussion in that we didn't want to impact them all in one year. We could certainly look at that maybe next year or the year after. But we also don't want to deter business and business growth. And so we would be more looking at that as like a multi-year tiered approach if we went that route.
Okay, are you anticipating within a few years it will be equitable?
I think we will kind of go back next year and look to see what that dollar amount is. It changes slightly each year. And so we will look at that with the flow committee next year as we reassess rates.
Okay, thank you. The possible option to encompass the reuse fund and consolidate it into the larger water fund surprised me. Would that be something that needed the approval of council, or would that be something that you just decided to do?
No, it would definitely be something that would come to council potentially in future years. So not this year, potentially next year or the other year. But just to put it in perspective, the reuse brings in about 1.5 million in revenue. And some of these projects are much larger than that. And so we would look at all types of alternatives in terms of funding for Great Western and some of these other ones. So I think, we'll reassess that next year. It was just one of the many options that we'll be looking at next year.
Okay, thanks. You said you got feedback from the reuse customers for the most part. Does that include, did you get feedback from the HOAs?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we did. We received, I personally talked to Anthem Ranch today, and they confirmed they would reduce 20%. And then we had confirmation from, I know from Baseline and Anthem Highlands. Anybody else?
That's it for each.
That's it for the HOAs for now.
Okay, thank you. Specific projects. The CIP linked attachment said that the Outlook lift station is still awaiting approval from the CDPHE. This is getting a little silly.
Yes,
Do
it
we have
is.
any hope here?
Yes, they're making some changes at the health department. And we've been working with them through our organizations. They work closely with both the water and wastewater utility councils, which make up of most of the utilities in the state of Colorado. We meet monthly, and we meet monthly with the state to help reduce that backlog. What are some of the steps the state is doing to reduce that backlog? They keep indicating that it's a staffing issue and a financial issue. They're not getting enough money. Hence, they've raised our permit fees about 19%. And so we are continuing to work with them and push as much as we can without aggravating them too much.
Okay, thank you. And then could you please give a specific update on Chimney Hollow Reservoir?
Yes, I think overall the drought and the inability to provide water into the reservoir this year has allowed Northern to conduct a little more thorough investigation of the water quality, particularly of the water that was released. I think it was 1,500 acre feet this early this summer or May in area. And they've been analyzing that water. What is the effect? What is the amount of uranium changing with that amount of water in there? And we are continuing discussions with Northern Water towards a possible solution to what's going to be the recommended treatment or how are we going to address the uranium. We expect that to be hopefully by the end of the year, but by early next year for sure, particularly if we get a nice snowfall and the reservoirs fill back up. We want to be able to start filling Chimney at the earliest possible moment. And so we need to have a solution before that happens. And so that's what we're looking for right now. We meet monthly basically with that team.
So it hasn't, even though we have this major consideration that was unanticipated, it hasn't delayed the timeline so far? Is that what you're saying?
No, basically because the drought was so severe, there was no water that was able to be pumped from the Windy Gap Reservoir Project. And so we technically didn't lose out on anything this year, just because there was no water available.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the very thorough presentation. I was also surprised by the proposal to combine, or the consideration to combine the reuse and the general water fund. So before we kind of dive into that, remind us of were these always separate? When did we separate those out? That might have been part of the rate kind of structure stuff, but remind us of the history of this.
Thank you for the question. Those have always been separate since the inception.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, great. I didn't miss anything there, so that's helpful to know. And then so if we were to combine those funds, I'm wondering about the implication when it comes to separate rates or how we govern those funds, right? If we were to combine those two, is it the situation where, so just as we can raise the drainage, the stormwater fee separate from the general water fee, is this the sort of thing where were we to combine it, we would no longer distinguish between those things, so that general fee, that would all be the same rate increase? Is that how we would think about it?
On the water side, yes. But again, this is just a consideration. We would need to spend a lot of time analyzing this over the next year or two.
Sure. Yeah, totally understood. I appreciate that. I appreciate that this will come to council. I just want to fully understand what the implication is. Go ahead.
Just to help follow up a little bit on with council also is that our reuse system is at its capacity. So it's not like we're going to be able to expand it and get a lot of tap fees for additional revenue. Maybe a handful of tap fees and infill, but it's not going to expand any further north. Highway 7 is the boundary. And so we are kind of capped on that part.
So there's less happening with that fund longer term, which is part of the implication. Okay. All right. Well, again, looking forward to some thorough analysis there. I know one of my questions was asked, which is great. Another thing, hypothetically thinking through the potential decommission of the Great Western Reservoir. So all else held equal, say we didn't account for this in any other way, we're already seeing those more severe droughts and more of that risk coming in with that reuse water supply. Presumably that would get worse were we to decommission that and then not fill in the gap there.
Thank you, Councilmember Delgadillo, for that point. Yeah, so as a water manager, storage is kind of the Goldilocks. It's what you really want because it does give you that resilience against droughts. So certainly if we decommission the reservoir, and some of the alternatives that we're considering involve less storage or no storage for the reuse system, so that would make us quite a bit more vulnerable to droughts. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it'd be that, or it'd be more expensive because we're mixing potable water, or it'd be, as you noted in the presentation, there are indirect fees in addition when you decommission that. Okay. Understood. Again, really looking forward to more analysis there. I would say that for what it's worth, without any additional information, we've been ripping Band-Aids off with water for a while. What's another Band-Aid to rip off? And maybe we should just fully fix this, save ourselves some headaches for the next 50 years. 50-year council will thank us for this. But again, looking forward to this. And then one more thing, I am excited by the rate changes for the commercial water supply. I think that this is a really good proposal for a change to have the tiered system. One thing I think I know the answer to, but just want to put a finer point on this. So there are parts of Jeffco, so by the airport, we provide water for them, but we don't control their zoning. We don't do anything like that. So they would still have to pay our rates, say if a data center were to get approved right there, they'd still have to deal with us.
That's correct. They would still have to pay our Broomfield rates.
We love that. Yeah, great. Those were my questions. Looking forward to more information on all of this. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next is Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I want to start by saying I appreciate the discussion on the commercial users and bringing them up to paying closer to 15% since they're using 15%. I kind of get the part where they need to maybe move slower, but hopefully we get there so everyone's paying their fair share. A quick question, and this sort of comes from what Aurora did. I'm wondering if we had some significant large water users coming into Broomfield, like thinking like evaporative cooling, if the data centers are really moving away from that, but if somebody, one or more of these entities were going to come in and really impact the overall water usage for their customers, can we put in, or have we considered putting in like a restrictions, prohibition, something to stop adding any more additional large water users? Has that been like a consideration?
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. That's a huge and complicated question. We have had discussions over the last year about data centers driving a lot of the discussions and the kind of impact that they would have on our water supply balance. We have considered we've looked at what other cities are doing just in general for large water users, and things like impact fees is what some of the other communities call them. So some sort of surcharge or increase to our tap fee that would make it a lot more expensive for a very, very large water user to come into Broomfield and connect to our system, or requiring them to bring the amount of water that they're going to use on an annual basis. So maybe they would bring CBT units to the city and dedicate them to the city to offset the increased use that they would have. Those are possibilities we've considered. I don't know that we've considered any sort of like ban or moratorium other than the moratorium that you all considered here over the last few weeks. The only other thing I'll say is that you guys saw slower growth projections based on some of the conditions that have changed economically. So that has brought down our water use projections. So it's a little bit less of a concern given those slower growth projections for our water. We have a little healthier buffer of water supply over what our future use is. So it's still something we're watching and concerned about, but not as quite as a flashing red light as it was maybe a year ago.
Okay, thank you for that. And I will just say I support the recommendation to increase the water rates and stay in line with the actual cost. So thank you for doing this deep dive.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank Mr. Rett. Several members of council and I had the opportunity to go on a tour of the drinking water and wastewater facilities recently, and it was very informative. We got to see the real-time monitoring and even the robots, not in action, but we got to see them. So thank you for that, and congratulations on exceeding the state standards in multiple areas. That's great. I have some questions about Great Western. So we could do a full replacement, or we could save 25% and fix the problem temporarily. Is there any estimate for what it would take if we separated that out into two pieces, like fix it temporarily now and then do full on later? How much more money would that be total?
I think, Councilmember Peterson, if I understand your question, so you're saying do the selective replacement of those two failing systems now and then come back sometime later and do the full dam replacement. I think it would literally be additive. So we would do the 36 million now to replace the tow drain system and the outlet pipe, and then in 10 or 20 or 30 years, it would be 48 million to replace the dam, plus whatever construction inflation has occurred over that time span. So it would really be more than doubly expensive. It would be probably the worst of both worlds.
Okay, good to know. And then with the 48, does that include the cost of finding alternative water in the meantime, or is that just the repair cost? Because it'll be 2 years where it would be offline, right?
Yeah, and that's a good thing to point out as well. Excuse me, good thing to point out as well. We're still evaluating what we would do during those 2 years to keep the system whole for those 2 years and have it operate. The 48 million does not include the cost to find alternative supplies or whatever response we would do during those years. I will say there is a contingency included on that cost, so it's possible as we get in, if we were to select that alternative, we were to do design, the cost could come in lower. That might create some space within that $48 million estimate to accommodate some of those issues or any other things that come up. But it currently does not have a line item for that in the cost estimate.
And would the alternative sources be similar to that for option 3 with decommissioning?
Probably not, because with decommissioning, we would have to bring online permanent alternative sources. So that would involve constructing some other projects or making some permanent modifications to the system. So in this case, there are a couple of options that we've talked about. They're really just ideas at this point. So there is the possibility that we could, for those 2 years, supplement the reuse system with potable water. We wouldn't be completely without reuse water. We'd still be able to pump from the wastewater plant. We could supplement with potable water, which would have a cost associated with it. We would probably we are already working on demand management with all of our reuse customers because we are at capacity and because we want to bring down some of those peak uses. We would probably look at either some cooperative agreements or even restrictions if we needed to do that to make those 2 years work.
Okay. My last question was about what other projects we might have to postpone if we do go with the full replacement, but because that's a little far off, we probably don't even know yet. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
That's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next is Councilmember Twist.
Thank you. And thank you for the lovely 3-pronged report tonight. I'm curious about our reuse system. How many customers do we have? Are they all fairly large? What does that system look like? I would imagine we are a large customer.
Yep. Thank you, Councilmember Twist. So Broomfield Parks is the largest customer. I don't remember the number. It might be half. Say that again? 18 customers besides Broomfield Parks. Okay. So in addition to Broomfield Parks, we have 18 individual customers. I think Broomfield Parks is about half of the overall water use. Kevin might, yep. Okay. He's nodding. The Interlochen area is about another 30, I think, % of the overall use. There are 8 or 10 HOAs, Anthem Ranch, Anthem Highlands, the new Baseland development, a couple other ones. Greenway Park, the golf course down in Greenway Park is a customer on the reuse system. Not any other ones are popping in my head, but there's a couple of corporate campuses. I mentioned the data center up north. Their campus is on reuse, so it's spread out. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but we do have a master plan that describes the number of acres across the city, and it's pretty well spread out from basically from Arista all the way up to Baseline. We have customers all over the place.
And are there any other city departments other than parks that are reuse customers, or is that mainly it for us?
It's parks. I mean, there are, like, this campus here is done by reuse. The police station, the new police station will be on reuse for their landscaping. I think most of our facilities are on reuse. Water recovery, so the campus around the water recovery facility uses reuse for their irrigation. But those are all managed and coordinated by parks. So it all comes through parks.
And are we, or parks, or the coordinated CCOB effort being reduced?
This year, or
what efforts are, like how much is our reuse use being reduced?
So we met with, actually, since you did.
We'll call our friend Ryan Jensen, who's superintendent of the parks, and he'll give you the answer.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and Manager Hoffman, and esteemed colleagues. Yes, we received a letter as well. We met with our teammates and utility in water utilities and had the same request to reduce 20%, and definitely abided by that quickly before the night was over. After receiving the letter and notification on Friday last, we adjusted with the recommendation that was given to us for reduction. So we absolutely are a large user on the system and try to be as responsible as we can and be a good model for the rest of the customers on the system.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
You mind if
Thank
I
you.
add one point to that?
Absolutely.
So I mentioned that we have a demand management program on the reuse system where we're trying to reuse peak hour. That will save infrastructure costs tremendously. And our consultants have been working very close with Parks. They've been our closest partner on that, and they've made a huge impact on reducing peak hour demands already this summer, which will avoid the need for a new storage tank on the reuse system at the cost of like $25 million. So that's been a great partnership between Water Utilities, Parks, and our consultants working with their park staff on that. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like I need to take a deep dive, so to speak, into reuse water policy to better understand. My understanding I had a couple questions about Great Western too, based on your presentation. I'll try and get through them quickly, but I was curious as to why, if the state notified us 7 years ago, there was conditions, why now is Great Western urgent?
So there are various reasons. So that started the process in 2019. So when they rated the dam as conditionally satisfactory, a number of actions started to take place immediately after that, including moving from biannual inspections to annual inspections. They increased the frequency of which they would do camera inspections of the outlet pipe. Some of the surveys were done more frequently. And then they did what's called a semi-quantitative risk analysis. So it's an engineering thing where they look at, okay, since you have these issues on the outlet pipe and the tow drain, what are some of the things that could threaten the stability of the dam? How likely are they? And they connect that to then the requirements to address these two issues.
Was the state saying we need to act by 2031?
They have not set a deadline. We stay in touch with them pretty regularly. We were originally on a little faster schedule. We've communicated with our inspector to push it back. He so far hasn't had any concerns. The main risk we're taking with that is as those systems continue to degrade, if they get to a point where the state feels like they are no longer functioning at all, they could then rate the dam unsatisfactory and restrict our use of it.
Higher chance do you think that is?
I
don't know.
Don't know.
In terms of funding for the reuse, is it all, I guess the question is, if we have to do option A, B, C, who's paying for that? Is that the reuse users? Is that how the revenue is generated?
I think that is very much in the air. One of the things that we're trying to figure out. It's part of the implication or the motivation to potentially combine the two systems. And the cost is the main reason that we're looking for alternatives that would be hopefully substantially less than 48 million. If we can find an alternative that would do it.
The revenue source would be all water users.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councilmember Cohen. That would be one of the alternatives, but it's to be determined. We'll need to look quite a bit and do a lot of analysis.
Would there be, or water enterprise would be water users, right?
Right.
So
If
this-
it went to that, if we went that route.
But we have to do something, right, by 2031, or we're risking something catastrophic potentially. So I assume this means it'll affect water rates in addition to this 5-year plan.
Most likely it would.
And last time, I think the quarterly meeting you guys were here, I asked you about, you mentioned, I think, revenue was affected by conservation. More and more users were conserving water, thus our revenue was dropping, correct? I assume that's continuing, especially with the drought, that people are accelerating their conservation, including our commercial clients.
The answer to that is I think it depends. I think there's a lot of people that are conserving, and I think there's still some people that would like to see their lawn green and are doing whatever they need to do that. So I think for the most part, people are conserving, but you do have some outliers there that are continuing to, but that's more on the residential side, not on the commercial side.
I mean, is there any concern that our revenues are going to continue to go downwards just simply due to conservation, which we want, but affects our revenues negatively?
Yes, but I think it's at such a gradual clip that it won't be kind of a precipitous drop. It'll be over time, which we have seen over the last 10 years. So, but it's relatively small and a little bit each year. So it's nothing that's too dramatic.
Is it I don't know if you have a sense of this, but if our commercial rates are so low comparatively to everybody else, are our commercial users using a lot of water by compared to their peers who are in a different jurisdiction? Or do we think there's incentives there that could be used to get them to reduce?
I don't have a great answer to that. I don't have a comparison to other communities because businesses tend to be pretty unique. The one thing I will say is that we do see with some of our business sector, there is quite a large spike from winter to summer use, so they are doing a lot of irrigation. I don't know any details about what that looks like, what their campuses look like. We haven't looked into it in great detail, but there are at least some that have a huge increase in their summer use to irrigate large campuses.
I'm just curious, I think you mentioned that we are at capacity for reuse, right? And that in terms of what the system can handle?
Not so much in terms of the system can handle, but that so Baseline is coming onto the reuse system for all of that development. There's one other small HOA that has the option to come onto the reuse system. We're not going to do any further expansion besides that. So we've planned for those new connections coming onto the system and the demand that will represent, and we have the capacity for that, pending the decisions about Great Western Reservoir, but we're not adding any other new customers besides that.
You said Great Western is 70%. What's the other 30?
The other 30 is active everyday pumping from the wastewater plant into the distribution system.
Which you would think would be a never-ending supply, but.
It's the limitation is that there's only so much water and only so much pump capacity to meet peak demands in the summer. So we need another source to augment that all summer long.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Romine, I think, has escaped because I was just curious that if our low water rates had had an economic, we aren't charging much, but it has attracted more business to the community, that perhaps that's been something that's given us more jobs and businesses here by keeping the water rates low for those commercial users, or the economic impact of that, and what impact it might have if we start jacking up the rates for the business users, just the maybe unintended consequences that might happen for that. That's.
In response to that, I would say a lot of these large businesses don't really, it's a pretty small amount of their overall bills and amounts that they pay as a business and the expenses they have. Water bills are usually like 1 or 2%, so it doesn't usually make too much of a difference.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify something from the presentation where we talked about water consumption is kind of up compared to last year, if I read the presentation correctly. Is that adjusted for population increase? So is that on a per capita basis we're seeing higher water usage? Or is that just overall we're seeing more water usage because we do have more residents or businesses or whatever?
It's overall, it's total across all residents and all customers. So it's total consumption across the city. We haven't had a huge number of new residents and businesses in the last year. So I think it has I don't know the number, but it's probably had a relatively small impact. But the numbers you saw in the presentation were total.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. And then I wanted to go into a little bit further the commercial up to 15%. If I remember hearing Chair Peretti correctly, even with this increase for the commercial water rates, our rates are still lower compared to many other municipalities and or water districts. That, or I'm hallucinating what he said. And given the late hour, I'm not sure which one is true.
I'll go ahead and answer that. Yes, they are on the lower end. And we have spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff, but they are still on the lower end, which Mark has the numbers right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ones. Fort Collins is at $4. There's Westminster has a tier 1 of $9. And so that would be kind of our tier 4. So there's opportunities, I think, to gradually raise that up over time. depending on our conversations with Flo and council.
Okay, thank you. The reason I asked that is, I mean, if we are going to be on the lower end, I personally don't see the problem with even closing that 3% gap a little bit more right off the bat, given the issue around water. And especially with our larger water users, it's pretty inconsequential to them based on that 1 to 2% of their overall budget. Next, I want to move on to the reuse system and how it ties in with Great Western. Manager Hoffman, I think I recall you saying, I don't know if it was at the last update or some other previous update, but Interlochen has a special agreement about what rates they pay. Is that, if I'm remembering that correctly?
Mr. Rutt, will you fill in the blanks for me?
Sure, that is correct. Their Interlochen has a separate agreement that was negotiated, I believe, in the 1990s. That established a percent of our water rates to what they pay. So it's 50%, I believe, of the commercial rate.
Okay. If, for example, we need to completely decommission Great Western Reservoir, or we choose to do the full rehab and have to augment for roughly 2 years with potable water, for example, how does that circumstance where we're supplementing reuse interact with the legal agreement we have on what rates they're charged?
That will be one of our discussion points with our legal team in reviewing the contract and what flexibility that we may or may not have in the ability to change those rates.
Great. Just wanted to make sure we're on top of that. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to all for the great presentations tonight. And I just want to say I really appreciate the staff's diligence in, just tracking and reporting on all things water, keeping us up to date, as well as our wonderful Flow Committee members, especially for taking the time to stick with us tonight into this late hour. So my colleagues have covered most of my questions, but I have one more about the Great Western Reservoir. So Mr. Lurie's comment about what could happen if the dam becomes unsatisfactory. I just want to pull that thread, if you'll indulge me. Could you speak to the operational impacts that we should expect if that were to happen, including would we be looking at things like fines and legal actions, as well as operational impacts? Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. So the impacts would mostly be operational. I'm not aware of fines. I mean, we would comply with the state's requirements, right? We would not want to be operating a dam that they are saying is risky, right? So we would comply with their recommendation, not their recommendation, their requirement on how to operate the dam. If they rated the dam as unsatisfactory, they would then make an engineering determination about what's the safe storage level, how much water can safely be stored in the dam given the conditions that they found. That could be, it could potentially be to drain the reservoir entirely. It could be, they would set a level. It would be based on structural assessments, geotechnical assessments, and they would determine a level that we could safely operate it at. So we would then, whatever that was, if it was empty, if it was half, we would go without that capacity. It would have that operational impact of our ability to meet the reuse demands.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess a more reactive question, if the worst were to happen and the dam structurally fails, considering that, foundational weakness, I'm curious if our emergency management team and you all have discussed, would we have impacts to the homes in the surrounding community or actual water contamination that's coming out of the dam? What would be our worst case scenario there?
So for all high hazards dams, we are required to study that. And so they do look at what would happen in a catastrophic dam failure. They've done it for every dam in the state, actually every dam in the country. I think every state has the same requirements. So there are homes, I think mostly in Westminster, that would be affected. Some in Skystone would be affected. It would be a slug of water that would travel down Big Dry or Walnut Creek to Big Dry Creek. there would be flooding. It would not be good. So that's why, that's why these programs are meant to, the state doesn't want to be surprised, like, oh dear, that dam could fail any day now. You should take water out of it, right? They're looking for signs that this is not a long-term sustainably operable dam. You need to address these issues so that it doesn't become something that it's an emergency. We do have an emergency action plan, an emergency communications plan. Our team have coordinated that with Clay's team. So we have communications protocols and things like that. If anything, if there ever was a sign like something's going on that we weren't expecting, there would be an emergency action plan that would go into place.
Excellent. Thank you so much for speaking to that. That's all.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions from my colleagues? I think everybody asked everything, and thank you all for the wonderful reports and updates and the answers. So look forward to the next steps, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing. I appreciate everybody's work. So that concludes the agenda items for this evening's study session. Is there any other business to come before the council from my colleagues or staff? There being no further business, the study